my wife, like I was really trying to get my wife elk killed. She loves bow hunting, and I'm the lucky asshole that gets to do it all the time. So
She with you?
I was, yeah. I mean, she was.
You guys are all hunting together.
We were all hunting together.
Both boys, you and your wife.
And my niece and brother-in-law and.
Oh, you had a posse then.
A posse, and my wife is such a good mother to the boys and always wants them to be a part of everything, but. Shooting elk in the rut isn't the easiest with a posse. Like we would get in some spots where I could tell they were going to feed off a hillside. And
I like how Omar's over there just on his phone on the gram. He's just like
he actually is on the gram too, by the way. Yeah, it's my job.
Anyway, guy. Not that we're podcasting or anything here, Omar. I mean,
responding to DMs.
Go ahead and check your gram.
The only thing I can think of though when you're hunting with a posse is like. All his family sounds like a herd of elk just walking around, picking up sticks, kicking, as long as they weren't like yelling and screaming. But
my son, it's like Bo Brooks level cow call with his mouth. Like he wants to do it. So I just let him do it because it sounds incredible. And like elk will answer for sure. It sounds incredible. So I let him do that and I let him knock sticks on trees. You know what I mean? So it sounds like a bull.
Yeah.
And he takes it very seriously and he does not stop hitting a tree with a stick, and he does not stop cow calling.
When he's came in the office, he does a really good.
It's like phenomenal. So I let him do it.
Do you cut him off ever? You like look at him, and you're like, "Hey, cow call."
I tell him to do it. I hardly ever cut him off because he's one of those kids. If you tell him to stop, he's just going to do it.
He's going to let it rip.
I mean, that's my son. Imagine that, right?
Sure.
All you have to do now is start to teach him like tactic wise, like when we call and when we don't call. Like let him start thinking about that. To be like, all right, I'm going to do this right now, Dad, and it does automatically. Like I thought I should do it, so I did.
So you guys know my personality. Bloodlines run deep. So I'll try to tell him that, and then he'll tell me no. He knows what he's doing. Yeah. You are definitely my kid.
Yeah.
Just the know-it-all. You are
like,
my
Dad,
kid.
I've been on like 3 elk hunts already.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I already know.
Exactly. So we were rolling around in a big posse. We would sit in the afternoon to have them come off a hillside, and we would get 100, 150 yards. But my wife's bow goes to 50. 50's her last pin. It's not a slider, and I don't want her shooting any further than that either. We just couldn't get any closer with the posse. So I started to talk her into just come out with me in the afternoon, and we'll go hunt them in their beds, and we'll get close.
Gotcha.
And man, we would get close, but it would be in the burn. So there was sticks and shit everywhere and like no shots. Like I got her to 55 a couple different times. And
is it, so you've hunted the same area for a long time, right? Prior to the burn, post burn, and we're how many years now? 4? Are we 4 years?
No, more.
5?
Yeah.
I was trying to remember what, have you seen the progression of that? I mean, are you seeing like more deadfall? Are those aspen like pretty much head high?
It's getting harder and harder to hunt every year.
Really?
Yeah, because the aspen region is too tall to even hunt it now.
Dog hair thick.
Yeah, and the deadfall. It's an interesting burn though because like there's still tree because there was a lot of aspens that burned. Mm-hmm. So like there's a lot of aspens that have fallen into other aspens, but the one they've fallen into hasn't fell yet.
Widowmakers.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of like cross branches and stuff everywhere, all at like shoot level, When
you're out there during the day, are you hearing them come down?
Oh yeah.
It's creepy.
We heard a ton of, even my wife's like, what is that noise? I'm like, it's trees.
Yeah.
Like look up, just head on a swivel.
This was just this last weekend, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not yesterday? No, 2 days ago.
I got home 2 days ago.
2 days ago.
Yeah. We hunted for 4 or 5 days.
Gotcha. What, and you shot a spike?
I did, yeah. So I was trying to get my wife. So anyways, I got her talked into hunting with me and we got to like 55 and just wasn't happening. And then finally she's like, you just go out there, go kill a spike. Cause I want the family to be a part of it. It's Romeo's first animal, whatever. So I went out for an afternoon and
you got him in like a baby carrier, like on her back or on your back?
We forgot one.
So you're just packing him around on your arm?
In my arms. My left bicep has got to be massive.
So you got a bow in one arm and a baby in the other?
I wasn't. So when we were with the posse, it was just my wife. I didn't carry my bow.
Gotcha.
It was just my wife.
Right.
Which maybe we should have switched that thinking back on it because I can shoot further. And like maybe we would have had a better chance at like 70 or 80 on a cow or spike than trying to get to 50 with her. It's kind of a dumb decision. But there was a shitload of elk. And the other thing too is, I remember on an older podcast, we had talked about the best time to kill a big bull. Mm-hmm. Just super validated again, Labor Day weekend. Like there was big bulls coming in, checking, no cows, peeling off on their own. Like, dude, if I was big bull hunting right now, this is.
You were calling in big bulls?
I wasn't calling them in, but they were answering.
Right.
And I would get visual on them, and they're by themselves.
By themselves, yeah.
They're bugling? What stage of the rut in are we in right now?
Definitely pre. I wouldn't say they were like cracking off, just, but they would answer. They would answer like a locator call.
Locator bugle?
Yeah. They would answer. They weren't coming to calls, but they would answer.
Gotcha.
And then I'd get, tell me their location, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what bull that is. I wonder if the one from the tops made it. And so I'd go get visual on them. I'm like, I could definitely kill that bull right now.
Right.
Like, this is a phenomenal time. If I had a big bull tag,
Yeah.
no cows, tell you where they are. They don't move a ton.
Curious.
It's like, yeah, it's definitely pre for sure. A lot more pre than it was Labor Day last year.
Yeah.
Last year was more ruddy Labor Day than it is
last
this
year
year.
Labor Day
Was like pretty good.
Yeah, they
rut.
were. I was seeing pretty good bulls. Like I remember
Yeah.
seeing like a legit 360, 370 class bull. I was deer hunting
On cows.
with cows, like
Yeah.
rutting cows, pushing cows, bugling.
There was
was it
one mature
cooler-
bull on cows.
Was
One
it cooler
mature bull.
last year?
Way cooler. It was hotter than a pistol is.
Like what would, I'm just trying to figure out in my
trying
head,
to
like
remember.
what potentially was causing last year to be good Labor
I can
Day.
tell you exactly. Last year was way cooler.
Did we have rain?
Way cooler.
Yeah, more
Something?
rain. I remember getting rained on.
This year-
I got rained on though, like a little bit over the weekend, and,
So-
and we had rain the weekend before. I wasn't up there, but Neville was.
We had rain every day. Mm-hmm. So, but the morning, I never wore a jacket. Never, not one time. I was an approach hoodie the entire time. Never had to wear a jacket. Last year, we were in legit jackets. Like, it was a lot
Cold.
colder. This year, it would get so hot by 2 o'clock that it would build a thunderstorm. And then the afternoons were awesome. They were, other than the wind, because the wind was super shifty with the storms
Yep.
rolling in. But it would get so hot that it would build a rainstorm every afternoon. And I don't know if that had something to do with it this year.
Where are we at in the moon phase time frame?
Oh, I'd have to go back and look. I can't remember. I know we're kind of on the dark of the moon right now.
I honestly didn't even look.
It was pretty dark. I was out deer hunting, and Colin, I will say, so I drove from my house.
Dark.
Yeah, we're on the dark of the moon. I know that. I think next full moon is like the 17th, 18th, something like that. I think it's the 18th, 17th. Yeah, I knew that.
It's full.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
Not good for us.
yeah, not great.
We'll hunt them.
As far as rut goes,
We'll stalk them in the dark.
But
Is what
as-
we're gonna do.
As we've always said, you hunt when you can hunt.
yeah, we're gonna get into it.
It's not bad. It'll just change
Yeah.
the tactics. We'll
We'll
stalk them in the.
we'll do a
in
quick
the dark
introduction
and then
here in a
start hunting
second,
when the sun
but
comes up.
I saw so many deer.
Really?
Dude, if you want to hit a deer right now, I hit one. I hit a fawn.
No.
Yeah, I did.
Smoker.
Trail.
Kid did kill it.
Ooh.
Yeah, yeah.
Honestly, kind of better though.
Yeah,
Like
killed
you got a
it.
broken leg. and-
Yep. Ended up having to stop and then drag it off the road, which sucked. I was only doing, by the time it ran right into my rear tire. Like my rear tire, I was probably doing 10 miles an hour at the time, like trying
So
to avoid
shitty.
it. Couldn't get to a full stop, but like trying to veer and slow down at the same time. And like mother was out ahead, so I didn't want to hit the mom. So I was just like trying not to, it just sucked anyway. Yeah. But then prior to that, like within like an hour before that, just an absolute smoker buck. A guy had just munched on the highway.
Really?
Just munched it. I mean, like a legit, probably 180, 190 type buck. Yeah, two trucks pulled over, two guys looking at this thing in the headlights, just all velveted out. And I was like,
Just got smoked, huh?
just smoked. But so many deer. I couldn't believe the number of deer I saw driving.
Which highway were you on?
Ooh.
The one that goes up and over the mountain.
Easy.
And
So
then
it's a mountain highway, like a
the one that goes
county
up and over
highway?
the mountain, and then the one that hugs a bunch of country. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so many deer.
Just yeah. So you're in deer country on the highway.
Yeah, yeah. I was driving. I went over.
You're not on an interstate.
Yeah,
You're
I
on
went
a
over
county
in the
highway.
edge, like dusk. Left my house after work, 5:30 probably, 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Left, drove, and dude, it was like getting dusky. Probably like half hour, before like shooting light would not be. Just deer everywhere.
That's a good.
It was
it's
a good
thing.
sign. So
Yeah.
it was yeah, and we did see a lot of deer, which was kind of nice. But
I saw a shitload of deer too.
yeah, it's
A
good.
shitload.
It's good, man. It feels like it was a good year for production as
It
far
does.
as deer goes.
I saw multiple does with twin fawns.
Twin fawns.
Like multiple.
Yeah, me too.
I saw a lot of bucks.
Yep.
This is probably the most deer I've seen during the elk hunt in a long
Yeah,
time.
and I was hunting with Neville. Neville was trying to help him out. Neville had been on some pretty good bucks, and I went over and spent the weekend trying to just like it's so hard to do on your own without a spotter. And I thought, man, with the spotter, maybe we can like make it happen. And dude, we were so close. I've never, if you've been in these situations, you probably with Omar, right? Where you're watching this whole thing happen and you're like, it's so nerve wracking.
It's the worst.
Like my nerves were shot. The end of the night, I was just like, he finally got back to me after it didn't work out. And I was just emotionally, physically, just like wrecked. And all I done is sit there for a full night and watch this deer all night.
So the video, I'm videoing Omar drop in through the spotting scope. You can hear my heartbeat in my breath. Like, I'm not kidding. You go back and watch it, you can hear like
I'm talking into the video. I'm like, okay, I can see both of them in the same frame of my spotting scope with it zoomed in.
Real. That's when it gets
and I'm
so
like,
real.
Okay, please shoot. Shoot now. How about now? You've got to shoot that buck. He's right there. Shoot the buck. Shoot the buck. And I'm like filming the whole time because I know just any second, like I'm just going to see this thing mule kick and take off running down the hill and tank, you know, but it just didn't come together. And then one point, I'll just throw this in, but like at one point this buck feeds down and Neville's within 55 yards and this buck's like feeding towards him and he's like stops in a bush, head in a bush, he's eating. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, as soon as that buck gives him an angle, like this buck is smoked. And then the buck turns and walks like dead away from him, kind of down the hill. And then like it loops in underneath these two big rocks, like the size of a bus, right? But like they're pretty perfect to me. From my angle, it looks like you could walk up on top of these rocks and, you know, like shoot this buck. So at one point, you know, the buck kind of works around the front of these two rocks and I see Neville come down and like walk up on the little, you know, like the little saddle that it, you know, it creates like where you've got the uphill and the rocks, you know, and Neville's like standing right up there and he like, my memory, like he like takes his hat off and he's just like confused, kind of, you know, like looking around.
And you're watching the buck right underneath him.
Right underneath him. Like this buck is 30 yards underneath this big rock and he's standing on the other side, kind of on that little flat spot, that depression. Yeah. And I'm just like, walk up on that rock. Just take 10 steps up onto that rock and look over and he'll be broadside right there. And then I watch him like turn and he starts walking into the timber and the buck like turns and starts to parallel him and they're like paralleling each other. Like Neville's in the timber, buck's kind of below the timber in the open and they're just like paralleling each other. And I'm just like, they're within 60 yards of each other the entire time. And I'm just like, okay, shoot the buck, see the buck, shoot the buck.
Yeah, so all you need to do is get that one visual.
Yeah, that one visual. And then he like creeps out to the edge. The buck comes around the bend. And like I see at one point, he definitely sees the buck. And I'm just like, okay, you're going to shoot the buck. And then didn't get a shot and the buck turns and like takes off running. I don't know if it like hurt him or saw him or whatever, but
so Omar's hunt.
It was rough.
I have one very similar. Omar's hunt. We had good cell service, like I said on that original podcast, but the one I called him, I'm like, hey, there's a perfect hogsback ridge. You're going to walk down that. You're going to hit the open sage, follow the aspen tree line. And when you get down to the bottom of the aspen tree line, there is one lone cedar tree. Like you can't miss it. And he's bedded on the other side. Okay, so hang up the phone. Omar puts his stocking shoes on, goes down, and now I have them both in the same frame. And I'm like, oh, buck's dead. Yeah. Like as soon as he turns broadside,
I'm packing out a buck in my mind. I'm like, okay, we'll be back to camp by about midnight.
I told Bones and Jordan, who we were with, I'm like, dude, get ready. Like this is happening. Like make sure you're watching. And buck stands up and feeds broadside, and I'm like, okay, he's not strapped onto his bow. Okay, no, like what? You shoot him. Like, okay, he's quartered away. It's deadliest shot on planet Earth. Like you shoot him. The whole time I'm like, what is going on? Then Omar gets up. From my perspective, it looked like it couldn't be any better. Omar gets back up to the top where he has cell service, calls me. He goes, I could only see the tips of his horns. The sage was so tall. Yeah. I'm like, well, shit. I didn't see that. Yeah. You know, like I didn't tell that. I thought he was smoked the whole time.
Dude, 2 days before that, we have the same buck bedded in a very good location. Like we can see the buck bedded mid-afternoon. He gets over there. He's like 110 yards from this buck and dropping in. Wind's perfect. I like look down at my phone. I like look back up into the scope and he's just gone. And I was like, what the hell? Like that buck was just bedded, like literally half a second, split second, gone. And I'm like, what is going on? I can't find the buck. I throw up the binos. I'm like looking everywhere. Can't find him. Anyway, Neville gets back and he's like, dude, did you see that bear? He's like, a black bear come through there and was like running after that deer, chased that deer out of his bed, up and around the bend, and then like up underneath these cliffs. And then the day that so the next day we hunted, saw one buck, didn't get a chance. Then the third day when this happened that I was telling you about, first thing in the morning, I'm like glassing up the slope, different bear, giant
Really?
bear.
And the one actually went after the deer.
Yeah, it
Don't
was
get
like
Brady excited.
full tilt.
Yeah, don't. Brady's so excited.
Full tilt running.
When I saw the story that Neville was posted, I was like, bears?
Brady, this
Really?
Brady,
bears?
this
Respectable bear?
Respectable.
this second
Top hat
bear
bears.
was a big boar. And,
Respectable or not?
Huh? Oh, respectable bear for sure. Top hat and everything. Cane the whole
Gosh,
night.
love
Had a
him.
monocle.
The whole
Dude, he was
nine.
pimp
Love him.
walking down that slope big time. Definitely
Trade
respectable
Neville an
bear.
elk spot for the bear spot.
For sure. But dude, this bear was like, his back was like color of this bear, kind of like the haunches of this bear here on
Yeah.
the kind of a cinnamon color, and then just
Ooh,
like faded
love
to
it.
just jet black legs.
Ooh,
Like,
black boots. It's sick.
gorgeous bear.
Brady's really excited now.
Yeah.
I saw him
I-
stand. He
yeah.
got real postured up.
I
right
told
there.
Neville, I'm like, well, for one, I'm like mad at bears right now because blew our shot.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I'm gonna keep applying. Hopefully, I'll draw a bear tag and go in there. But
So it literally went after a bedded deer, huh?
dude, it took
That's
off
wild.
after that
I've
bedded
never
deer.
seen that.
Yeah, which I'm like, you're not gonna catch that deer. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, is there like a good fall berry crop up there?
You're just
like,
screwing
should be on
my
the berries.
dude.
Not,
It's pinyon and juniper. There's some snowberry, a lot of
Yeah.
snowberry. Those bucks are living in snowberry and bitter brush and sage. That's like definitely what
wild.
they're eating. But yeah,
I haven't seen that.
dude's wild.
like, what time of
Crazy.
day was this bear up
Did
moving?
you get a video of that?
No, I was looking
sick.
for deer, man. I'm hunting deer.
Yeah.
I can't be looking at bears. I'm like, forget that bear. I just want to look at deer. But what time of day? So morning for the
yeah.
second one, and then mid afternoon, evening, like 5 o'clock for the first one that ran that deer out of his bed.
Crazy.
I know we're going to talk about elk here in a second.
Yeah,
did
we
you,
are.
Did you see Omar's
Because
velvet
September
buck?
is for elk, Brady.
What? No, I have 2 mule deer hunts in September.
Yeah, no. That's
September
what
for
I'm
mule
telling
deer.
you.
No, September is definitely elk
Elk.
month.
It's elk.
National Elk Month.
National Elk Month.
It's
Yeah, is that
elk
a thing?
month.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
It's like Shark Week in July. This is elk month.
Elk Month.
Yeah, it's kind of the Shark Week. I get that aspect. I love sharks.
National Elk
Great.
Month.
Shark Week is a great time for cable.
Yeah. What
the
were you
only
gonna
time
ask?
for
them?
cable.
Did you see Omar's velvet buck?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I ran down to St.
Oh, yeah,
George
that's right.
on a Sunday, and might have been a Saturday or Sunday. I can't remember, but I ran down late to meet Campos. So Brian Campos killed a good buck
did.
and was running it up to the taxidermist, and he was delivering me some goodies.
Nice.
And so I ran down and met him, and I got to look at Omar's buck, and I got to look at Campos's buck, which is super cool.
That's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
Omar's buck's a stud.
And the taxidermist had like a 205 general season buck that just
Ooh.
come in, which is pretty
Nice.
sick to look at. It's just like time of year velvet coming in. It's
So
freaking
nice.
awesome.
I was watching some videos that we shot with Crispy the other day,
Mm-hmm.
and in the camera you're like, I think you guys talking about releases or something, and you said with like this release you're gonna shoot a couple 200 bucks.
Yeah. I haven't seen a 2 hundo. I've seen some 180 pluses,
Yeah.
maybe low 190s.
It's fun to look at.
God,
So
they're so
fun to
hard to
look at.
kill. They're so hard to kill with a bow.
Yeah.
Dude, so
Mule
hard to
deer with
kill.
a bow is so hard.
So hard to kill. Yeah, watching Neville with that buck and the two of them being about 45 yards apart, and one of them, and watching Neville look confused, and then watching that buck just like feeding broadside just underneath him. I'm like, I wonder how many times this has happened to me. It has to
All
be
the
so
time?
many.
Yeah,
All the time.
All the time.
Hunting solo a lot. I'm like, and
Yeah.
you get to a bed and you're like, that deer's gone, and you're like, he probably took off. There's so many. He's probably within 30 yards of me
Within
the
bow
whole time.
range
Yeah,
still.
within bow
Yeah.
range, and I'm just like sitting there scratching my head, being frustrated about it. But
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, it is elk month. The whole
Brady.
month is elk month.
Really?
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people hunting mule deer right now.
In fact, September 1st, we're sitting up there, and I'm with Neville, and he's just like, dude, we could be hunting elk right now.
I wouldn't expect anything else from Neville. Nothing
Yeah.
else.
He's like, what are we doing? This is stupid. We should be hunting elk right now somewhere. So, sorry, Brady.
And I
Elk
do
month.
agree.
Yeah. But I thought it'd be good just to kick off elk hunting, elk month, archery elk hunting. I think bull elk are built to be hunted with a bow.
Yes.
I thought we should talk about elk and elk hunting, and then kind of specifically, I think I wanted to do this podcast as I was thinking about it. I was talking to Brady on the phone the other day. I kind of wanted to do it as just a reminder for myself, because that's like one thing. Like as I started bow hunting deer earlier this year, there were like many times I was like, oh, I think I forgot this. Like, I think I forgot what I'm supposed to do right now or what I should do, you know? Like, a lot of it's gut instinct, but there's like these little things that you just forget. Mm-hmm. So I thought for our own good, we would run through some like commonly held archery elk hunting mistakes and like lessons learned and talk some experiences that we've had. And hopefully we can help some people with their elk hunting endeavors. And we brought young Omar onto the podcast today because he's a seasoned elk hunter.
I mean,
at this point,
I don't know about that.
Half seasoned.
He's salted, not peppered.
He's light. I think he's peppered and not salted.
Or maybe that's what it is.
I mean, looking at him, I would say he's got more pepper than salt.
Let's put that. He's peppered. He's not salted yet.
Yeah. I guess before we get started, we should hit promo. Brady, do you want to hit promo?
I can wrap that up in a nice little bow for everyone.
So,
yes, as always, want to sign up for a GOHUNT Insider account. There's still opportunities to get tags. I saw this week, Idaho, they did change it's the 4th sale date, I think, right now, or 5th we're on, for their leftover tags. So it's actually going to be next week. So I believe
for
it's gonna
turn back tags?
For turn back tags. So there's still opportunities in Idaho.
Have they published what's turn back?
No, because it was supposed to be this week. It was supposed to be, what's the date right now?
4th.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the 5th. Now I think it's going to be next week, which I believe is the 10th or 12th, something like that. Whatever next week Thursday is in September. They changed it. So there's still opportunities to pick up tags if you don't have a tag. So once those show up, start doing some research on Insider and use promo code podcast. Give you 50 points back to the GOHUNT gear shop, and that's good for anything in the shop. So that's $50 in your pocket.
We're getting ready to leave on different hunts. What are you guys buying right now?
Food.
A lot of food.
Food.
A lot of gear bags, a lot of food.
Food. Definitely food.
Yeah.
I like those days that I spent with Neville. I just like threw everything that was just like sitting around.
Yeah.
And there were many hours that I was pretty unhappy with my selection.
Yeah.
So I was just like, oh man.
You're pretty passive on your food selection.
I'm like, man, another peanut butter packet. How many of these can I eat in a day?
Have I ever told you guys my best friend's Clay Hill?
Yeah.
All the comments on the podcast saying that I say that too much. Anyways, I was talking to my best friend Clay Hill the other day. And speaking of it being September 4th, and I'm driving home from this elk cut. And he goes, yeah, I know a guy in Colorado who's shot the potential archery world record. Typical.
Buck?
Yeah.
Already?
Like,
this year?
And I'm like, how's he hunting? Like, it doesn't open till the 2nd. He goes, bro, it's the 3rd. I literally looked at my watch. I'm like, holy shit, it is September 3rd.
Wow.
Yeah. It's true.
Like,
so somebody killed a big buck?
Giant.
Really?
Giant.
I haven't seen that one on the rumor mill yet.
Dang.
No, that it's pretty under wraps. I'm the one breaking the news. I don't give a shit. I honestly don't care.
Typical?
And
Could
it
be the world
is
record?
What is that?
Gigantic.
2 what? 15?
210? I believe it's 216 out of New Mexico.
Yeah.
I believe. I could be wrong on that because I knew it was the famous story when it was first broken for the first time in a long time. It was out of 231 in Nevada where a guy was going to kill like a 3-point off of a field bedded, and he drew back. And
That's
then
right.
The
I
other
remember
buck
that.
stood up next to him, and he shot it, and it was 207 net.
That's
and
right.
So it was a total fluke, and that was the record for a while. And then the next year, another guy out of Nevada beat it, and then New Mexico beat it. And I believe it's like 216.
Jeez.
It could be definitely wrong on that.
Takes a lot of length to get to 215.
You saw this buck.
Really? Jeez.
So another cool thing, though, too.
Yeah.
Back on this promo code podcast, sign up for Insider. Like we mentioned in the last podcast, we launched Iowa and Nebraska on Insider. And even though it's... what? Oh, sorry.
We can't show this picture because it's not my picture. I know everyone gets mad at us for not showing what we're looking at.
Dude, that is... I feel bad for everyone listening right now.
I honestly shouldn't even be breaking the news, but I honestly don't care.
Holy macaroni.
That's a buck.
Yeah, that's a buck.
Yikes.
That's a buck of all bucks right there.
Out of Colorado.
Yikes.
That's a buck.
I love typical so much.
Especially one like that.
Yeah.
That's a lot of antler.
But anyways,
let me see real quick.
No, Omar.
Go ahead, Brady. What do you got?
Well, look, we talked about launching, Nebraska and Iowa.
Oh my God.
And so even though smack dab of September, elk month, I've been...
elk month.
I've
Is that how
been...
you said that?
Don't say it like that.
Say it again.
Give it some
Elk
respect.
month.
Elk month.
Elk month.
Respect.
Respect. All right. It's elk month. It's as good as Shark Week, everyone.
Love
it's
it.
the
It's
best.
Better
There
than
we go.
Shark Week. It's the best month of the year.
Okay,
Blue
yep.
jeans.
So I've been researching Iowa now because I have a ton of points in Iowa.
Yep.
I'm 1 point off max for I just build points in Iowa for just whatever reason.
It's very smart of you to be doing that.
Yeah. And so I was looking. I was like, I can draw every single hunt.
You gonna
In
go
Iowa.
archery? Or you gonna go late muzzleloader?
Late muzzleloader.
Yeah, smart. That's what I would.
So
do
I've been
too.
looking at it right now. I'm like, how
Yep.
can I find a sick Iowa hunt? I really want to go because like someone walked in the office the other day and they're like, oh, we're going to hunt whitetails. I'm like, well, you see that coos deer? That's bigger than my biggest eastern whitetail. I need to go hunt a big whitetail.
You got a hankering for a big whitetail.
Yeah, I kind of want something big. It has to be like whitetails don't start looking cool to me because I've talked about how I think they're ugly until they get like because their faces are weird. They're like
Just no
triangle. They're like
respect, Dana
triangle.
Brady, except for mule
Okay,
deer.
here's a question for you. What about a mule deer that has kind of a whitetail configuration?
like a whitetail 3-point build.
Yeah, whitetail 3-point, 6-pointer build.
Yeah.
Or even bigger. Let's say he's got a 3-point build with a couple extras going off a time.
Is that ugly?
Is that ugly?
Yeah, it is pretty ugly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I would tell you that's one of my dream bucks is a whitetail framed, like
Yeah.
no double branch, just the one.
Yeah. I do like if it's a big back, like actually has back forks and then no front forks and it's a 3-point, I kind of like that.
That's the ugliest deer on the planet.
ugliest.
I know.
I like
I
no G3. Give me that G4. That's
Yeah.
what I like.
Dude, a back fork 3-point mule deer is the
Ugly.
ugliest
Yeah.
antler configuration ever.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Yeah.
It could be a 200 incher and it would just be an ugly buck.
Not look great.
Yeah, it would
But
not
at
look
least
great.
they look majestic though because they have a better face, better ears, better.
You just like the double branch. That's what you like.
Dude,
you
this
like
buck,
the double branch.
This
of a
buck
mule deer.
Neville was on double throw patch. You could see
That's
it.
awesome.
You could see it from a mile.
Really?
Oh, dude, and his body was as long as this table. Like older buck, you know what I mean? Not giant ant, like nice buck. Double throw patch. It was like
That'll get me
I just
going.
kept saying, "Oh man, double throw patch. That's sick."
Yeah, that'd get me going.
Yeah.
I have yet to kill one of those.
Yeah, super cool.
But yeah, I've been trying to plan out if I can maybe pull something off in the meantime.
Yeah,
Probably need to find some private land because that's kind of the name of the game over there,
That is the game.
especially the late season
yeah.
coming to crops. But I'm like,
Just another
go back to my
opportunity.
go back to my roots.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
you
do
put
have the
it-
opportunity to put another permit in my pocket.
Yeah, you put it in your pocket and kind of plan on it and plan on it and plan on it, and then you just add that to one of your seasons. And
and I
go.
love muzzleloaders, so
Yeah.
kind of works out.
Right on. Well, cool. Should we talk elk?
Let's
I
talk
got
about
a promo for SIG.
Let's do it.
The very good use case
Yep.
that like I didn't necessarily think of, but my son, being only 5,
Mm-hmm.
like doesn't truly know how to look through binos and is pretty shaky and moves a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I put him in the Zulus. He was looking at elk through there because like they were stabilized, so he could actually see him. And I
Yeah.
actually saw the look on his face when he realized that he was seeing elk through the binos for the first time.
Yep.
Like that's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
Those are that's one of my favorite like little magic tricks. Just like hand somebody a pair of those
Yeah.
that's never really looked through them and doesn't quite grasp. I mean, like Canon back in the day. Do you remember Canon had some
Yeah.
image stabilized
Yeah.
binos and they were just like not great.
Not
they were
great.
kind of clunky. They were super huge but yeah, to hand somebody a pair of those SIG Zulu 6s and just like here now flip this toggle.
And see what happens.
You always start them out without it, you know, and you're like, look.
Why don't you just look through it and get
What do
comfortable?
you see? And they're like, I can see pretty good. It's like a pair of binoculars, you know, pretty clear. I'm like, all right, now flip that switch. And they're just like, wow, how does it do that?
Yeah.
I love how you said
Yeah.
magic trick.
It is a magic trick.
kinda is.
It is.
It
But-
really is.
To watch like the visual facial expression of my
Oh,
son
yeah.
realizing that like, he was actually using binos and seeing things through them, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's one of those fun oh shit moments. Look
I
at
love,
that.
I love that video of Turtle where he's looking at the NLs backwards.
Backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was when he was 3. He's much more seasoned now.
I like going to
a
the,
little
like,
salted.
He's probably
He's
one of the
a
more
little
seasoned kids.
you go to the
around.
archery range or like an archery shoot, you always know like you can kind of gauge the age of a person because they've always flipping their binos around
Yeah.
like turtle and they're looking at their sight tape like a magnifying glass to
Yeah.
like so they can dial to the right yardage. And I was like,
the
oh yeah,
older-
your eyes are
That's
smoked.
the older clientele, I would imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, not the younger, not turtle's eyes, I'm sure. All right, so let's talk elk hunting. Maybe we just jump in. Omar, you're new to elk hunting, fairly new. I mean, you're a seasoned pro. You've got you're peppered, right?
Peppered.
You're peppered.
Not salted.
Looking back on your elk hunt, you guys hunted elk. You're getting ready to leave next week, right?
Yeah.
I'm leaving next week on an elk hunt. Brady's going to hunt the lesser species.
The king's animal.
Boo.
November is for mule deer.
Yeah, November, October.
September is for elk.
Even August. You can say August is
Yeah,
for mule deer.
honestly,
We can
yeah.
give August, October, November, but September's elk month. Don't get it twisted.
All I'm
respect
hearing
on
is
it.
there's way better times to hunt mule deer than there's to hunt elk. So mule deer are king. There's more months.
Omar, what things that worked out? Looking back on your hunt, what didn't work well? What mistakes do you feel like you made and why?
That one shot I still look back on, just like the confusion of, something's covering the body, but that's still where you got to aim at. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. I was trying to get you to do that when we were practicing.
Yeah.
This is a very typical elk shot, is having deadfall at 20 yards, but the bull's at 50.
Mm-hmm.
Your arrow's arcing over it, but your pin is buried in the deadfall.
Yeah. That was
You know
one of
what I
like the biggest things.
You know what I mean? Trey?
I know exactly what you mean.
And actually, recently in the shop back here, we got our little archery range, and Lorenzo was like, "Dude, shoot this right here. It's like exactly your shot last year in New Mexico, your first one." That
Put the iron buck out just to let's give you some.
It was a
Aim
stack.
at that iron buck and see if it arcs over.
It was
It's not the iron buck.
It was a stack
That would
of
cure ya.
mountain houses.
No, yeah.
We just got a big shipment of mountain houses. This is like a couple months ago. And they're stacked up on pallets. So I walked over to the side. I stepped over. I'm like, Omar, this is the shot right here. And I'm thinking, like, even if he clips it, it's mountain house, whatever. It's not like it's Swarovski. You know what I mean? So, like, just come shoot this, Like, this is exactly the shot. So it was kind of fun. We had our pins buried into a pallet of mountain house, and he was still hitting the target. I'm like, see, that's that shot. You got to practice for elk.
So is that hard for you?
It's just like a mentally weird thing to process.
Yeah.
It makes complete sense when you shoot it, right? But like when you're in the backcountry and the nerves are going, and everything's kind of buzzing in terms of like mentally, that shot for me was just like super weird to process. So,
What do you think people miss? That was what you missed. You feel like?
yeah, and if you look back in the film, I was like shaking like a leaf.
That's normal, though. I shake like a leaf, too.
But when I killed my mule deer, I felt like a stone cold killer. I'm not gonna lie.
See, people say that. I don't get that feeling, and I actually very much enjoy the mental battle for me, because I do get so jacked up and shake, and I enjoy that mental, like, fucking calm down, like, you can make the shot. I like that internal turmoil.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
Yeah. I made some notes on some of the reasons why I think this is one of the points that I wanted to highlight and talk about. I figured Omar'd bring it up since he's missed a bull last year. Just kidding. I missed bulls too. I think one of the most common reasons that people miss a bull is because they don't have an accurate range, like a decent range on the animal. And as I think about it, there's a lot of scenarios when you're hunting elk, especially archery hunting elk, and you're in a calling situation, you are not able, or even spot and stock, you may get in close, or you might, a bull might come into a wall or a setup, and you may not shoot him on the wall. You might shoot him coming into the wall, right? Like I've done that. You don't really have time. Like you can't pull out your rangefinder with the movement, with the noise and everything, and actually range the animal. Like I was trying to remember I would be interested in kind of asking you, but how many animals have you killed with a bow that you actually had a chance to range the animal?
Way less than half.
Like I
Way
can't think
less
of
than
any.
half.
Like very few. Like a lot of the elk
My
that
stone sheep, because he was bedded,
right.
so I had an exact range, and he didn't take any steps, so I had a range on that. It's like the only one off the top of my head.
So what do you do? Like in an elk hunting situation?
I usually, like, you do the age old, like, range everything around to get verification of ranges. The other thing I do is if I do get a range on the animal, if I was able to, but he's still moving, is I count steps. Like for every step they take, I'll add yardage to it, whether it's, forward or back. I've been successful with that. Like that's how I killed that bull with you in New Mexico is, he was at 20 yards and he just started walking dead away and I was just counting steps. And in my head, I'm like, okay, he's 45, that many steps, 45, and shot him.
When I was a young whippersnapper and had OTC resident elk tags and maybe dabbled in the bow hunting of elk, I would visualize based on like 3D shooting and stuff like that, like unknown courses, like the 20-yard pole type of thing, like landing in front of me, flipping that again when I was elk hunting, trying to like visualize yardages based on that.
Yeah.
Because I knew I couldn't pull up my rangefinder either. So like taking something I know, 20 yards, was 20 yards in front of me, double that again.
Yeah.
And now I'm at 40 and like try to figure out in between there, then where potentially I might get a shot.
I'll get tore up for this because this one's a lot more visual than that. But like I can throw a football like pretty easily.
Over that mountain right there.
Over that. See that mountain range right there?
How much you want to bet I can throw a football over that mountain?
I can throw a football like easily, but kind of have to put some muscle into it to get it to go 50 yards. And I always in my head, I'm like, can I throw a football to that? And like, that's my 50 yard.
Man, that's
mark.
a good one. Yeah, that's
I've
a good
thrown
one.
him enough, like I've been around it enough that I'm like, could I get a football to that animal? So he's probably like 50, 60 yards.
Yeah. So I was thinking about my approach. I like to range everything around me, right? So
That's the first thing I do. Especially if you're making a stand.
Yeah, if you got a stand and you got a bull and he's kind of working and it sounds like he's probably closing the distance and he's coming in, I like to range as many objects as I can remember, just for reference. And I always try to pick out, this like sticks with me, I try to pick out objects that I can remember.
Yeah.
So like I want to look at a tree that like has a unique look to it. Like I know that tree is 60 yards and range it. I also think range it multiple times because there's a lot of times like you'll throw up your rangefinder, you range something and you may hit like some branches or something in front of it. You may hit something behind it. So like range things multiple. I like to range the base of a tree. That's one thing. And I like to build an inventory before that animal actually comes into range. So I'm like, okay, that's 60, that's 40, that's 35, that's 20. And as they're walking in, I'm trying to gauge their distance from that object that I know for sure that I've ranged. The bull I missed in Arizona a few years ago on a late hunt, I ranged it. I didn't wait for angle compensation in that Leica rangefinder that I was using, and I shot over its back. That's like another thing to be aware of is like go through your rangefinder. You should have done this like at a 3D range, shooting uphill, shooting downhill, and double check that your pin is hitting with the angle compensation. But I think that's like one of the number one reasons people miss.
Completely agree.
The other thing on the rangefinder side too, which you can do is I think a lot of people might have the rangefinder set at first target. On the SIGs, you can adjust it first, best, last, all sorts of other settings. And so you might want to switch to last target. That way, if you do have brush, whatever, let's say the elk 50 yards and your rangefinder keeps picking up 40, 40, 40, and you think it's 40 because you're hitting some brush in front of there. If you switch it to last, obviously you want to do this before the heat of the moment thing, and then you can start getting those ranges, and it's going to read through the brush and hit that back for the tree.
That is a really nice thing on those SIGs, the 8Ks, like our antelope hunt 2 weeks ago. That was awesome to have the option to like change that.
Yeah, because on an antelope
make
hunt,
sure
I switch it to first.
Yeah.
Because everything's so flat, so I don't want to
First or
like
best.
shoot something, past it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you said you were shaking like a leaf?
On that first bull,
Can I throw in
Yeah.
one thing for you? I was hoping you were going to bring this up, but you're not, so I'm going to do it. This is why you're peppered and not salted.
single pin sight that I was shooting.
There you go.
Omar must have been down on a Tinder date last night. He seems a little lethargic today. Was you out late last night, Doug?
No. Do you think I look lethargic?
Well, I don't know. Just checking.
It's not
No.
typical
Just
young
checking.
uncle.
It's just September and I'm not in the woods yet. So yeah.
Your head's out there.
No, but that is, I think that needs to be talked about on an elk hunt for sure.
Yeah, don't shoot a single pin sight.
Yeah.
And that's something, I talked to you guys afterwards. I mean, like going in, you guys were like, wouldn't know if I would do that. I'm just,
And you just didn't want to take the time to change it, which is a very easy change.
Yeah. And then, getting back, I was like, well, never going to do that again. I'll never put myself in that situation because I quickly learned.
I think that's probably more so the reason he missed that bull is he had single pin sight. Because we had an exact range because I was ranging. You know what I mean?
He was trying to move it.
Yeah, I moved it to the range.
He's trying to move it, and and then we got pinned by the bull, and I'm like, dude, you got to shoot now, And it's kind of that he just didn't have full confidence in where his sight tape was lined up.
So that might like fall into the category of just like having the right equipment for the job at the right time. Yeah, I think like kind of on that same piggyback, I don't know that people do like enough tuning and enough shooting with their broadheads prior to an elk season shooting. The worst thing about that is that like you might make a shot on an animal and you might miss it completely, or you might hit the bull and wound it. And at that point, you don't really know if it was your equipment or if it was you. If you haven't taken the time to like make sure that your equipment's set up properly, your pins are sighted in, and that your broadheads are hitting with your field tips and you've practiced with them.
And the other thing on that too is a wounded bull. Good luck.
Ugh.
Those things are so tough.
Yeah, big animal.
I got a question for you guys.
Mm-hmm.
So, like sometimes you're hiking around, you got your quiver on and everything, but the broadheads get loose in your arrow. Do you guys ever have that issue? No? They always stay tight? Mine,
Do you use the tool to tighten them down?
yeah, I use the tool.
Do you
They
put a,
got
little,
loose?
put a little wax on the threads? That'll help
Do
too.
that.
Okay.
Take a little bowstring wax, put it on the threading, and then screw that broadhead in, and then tighten it in with a tool.
On my
Okay.
tight spot, I like to have that extra.
Yeah, the secondary
extra-
arrow
that
gripper.
secondary
I
gripper.
want
Put
that
that
one
down
too.
there.
Yeah.
That way it doesn't like allow them to rattle a little bit. In the,
Yeah.
in the
I've
hood.
never had a broadhead come loose that I can
No.
remember. No.
Even on my mule deer hunt, like the broadheads were coming loose, and I was like, gee, like,
Interesting.
That is
what's going on
interesting.
here?
Yeah, the wax is a really good tip.
I'll do
But
that.
Trail said,
I was
yeah.
thinking of like, I was just going to super glue them, but
Yes.
You do that too? Hot melt them in.
yeah.
Then you can heat your insert up and pull it back out if you need to.
Yeah.
I was curious as to, like, you missed the bull. Then this year you just barely said that you're a stone cold killer on this mule deer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what changed? Like, what was different about the two for you? Like, what helped you make the shot this year that you felt like you were lacking last year?
Well, for one, I think I was within striking distance of 2 deer prior to that, and I, had killed that elk last season, so I had been within striking distance multiple times on this hunt, but 2 times specifically on that day. So when the third, opportunity came around to kill a mule deer, when I went in, I just felt comfortable. I mean, I saw him from 80 yards, so everything that was clicking, like I was stalking him quietly, everything.
What's in your frame of mind at that point? Like, you're within 80 yards. You're like, okay, I'm probably going to get a shot at this animal if I
Yeah.
continue down this path. Like, what are you working through in your head?
Just moving down quietly. I want to get to like that 50 to 60 spot where I practiced a lot. 80 yards, like I feel comfortable, but if I could see that I could get to 50 to 60 yards, that's kind of what I wanted to do, and that's where I moved into position. And I knew like there was like a clear lane to get to that. It's not like I was gonna step over brush or
Are you
anything
saying
like that.
anything to yourself?
No, but
What's your self-talk like?
my self-talk.
Yeah, I'm curious.
I don't really talk like internally too much. It's just like don't do anything stupid and kind of go through the motions.
Stone Cold Killer.
No
So
self-talk.
I'm constantly talking to myself.
So you're
Me
saying,
too.
So you're saying something.
Constantly.
You're saying something maybe that was interesting though. You said you had made some close encounters that same day.
Yeah.
So with those first encounters where you were like a nervous wreck, and then because of those first encounters where you're a nervous wreck, you were able to calm yourself down for this final one.
I think there's something to that. Yeah.
So like maybe get into a situation, like just kind of get it over with, or
Yeah.
like amp yourself up and then be able to calm yourself down. Then the next time you can calm yourself down.
Exactly. I think like my adrenal system. There's a big word for you guys. Had
I'll
already
Google that later.
had already gone through it. Which is just your nervous system. Had already.
Oh, thanks, Omar. I was being sarcastic.
I didn't know we had a Huberman on the podcast, but yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah, no, I had just already gone. Through like so many highs and lows that day. Not to mention like physical.
Yeah.
So I think like by the end of it, like I literally had my puffy on, and I was just like, I'm cold. I'm not taking this puffy off.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna put a stock in. I had my hood on and everything, and then as soon as I saw his antler tines, I was like, all right, here we go. Like you're gonna drop in, and if it happens, it happens. If not, we'll live to fight another day. But this is what we came here for. And then also too, I had a mantra when I actually got to the shot that I took from you, and I just mine. I did a little BTB on my riser, burn the boats, and I was just like, all right, when we finally get here, I'm just gonna go through that, and
Goggins Jr.
just gonna burn the boats.
Nice.
No going back. So
I will say, I think it's hard in the moment when you're elk hunting with a bow to control your nerves.
It is
Like
hard.
on the hunt you and I did back in 2018
Yeah.
with Born and Raised. The one opportunity I had that was pretty close, bull screaming in my face the whole time coming in. Like I've mentioned it before, but I looked down at my bino harness. My bino harness was just like moving. It felt like 4 inches. Like there was no way I would have, if that bull came in, there was no way I would have drawn back and actually made a good shot because like I was so amped up and like trying to control that. I think is hard when you have. I will say myself, bugling bull coming in is a rush.
Yeah.
The screaming in your face, doing all that. It's like it's hard to control it.
It is.
That's
It's
the
hard.
cool. That's the coolest emotion, coolest feeling. Like
Yeah.
when you're out of control, but then trying to control it and calm
Yeah.
yourself down. Which
I'm not going to sound as cool as Omar. Like shooting the spike 3 days ago, like I am out of my mind, shaking. Like I shake so much in those moments. I get so amped up that I cannot range one-handed because
Yeah.
I'm shaking too
they're
much.
just shaking too
So I
much.
have to like put it on the bow cam to actually get a solid range. That's how bad I shake. Spike, cow, big bull, it doesn't matter. And that honestly, I I love that feeling. Like I already said, I like that internal battle. But I am constantly talking to myself. Tell myself, stop, don't get ahead of yourself. It's going to happen the way it happens. Don't force anything. Like, let it go. I'm constantly having those conversations in my head. And then when I do draw, I am having a massive conversation with myself.
Yeah. Working your way through your process.
The whole process.
Mm-hmm.
I do think probably like
like a legit conversation. I'm not just like yelling at myself. I'm literally having a conversation like, okay, did you check your bubble? Yep. Check. Oh, was it level? Yes, it was level. Okay. Like I'm literally talking back and forth
second
to myself.
person, you're two-way talking.
To like double check myself.
I think one of the cool ways you might be able to combat that is like in the off season, do a bunch of like strenuous activity, then do like breathing exercises. You know, a lot of people talk about like,
I do that a lot.
Just like calm yourself down with breathing, like learn how like
I take
breathing
deep breaths.
can do it.
So that whole breathing exercise, I'll take a deep breath, deep as I can get it. I'll hold it for 30 seconds, let it out, push it out. I'll repeat that for as many times as I possibly can up into the point where I think like, okay, this shot's developing. And I feel like that really, like George Riles, he's the archery coach. He talks about, going through that exercise, a breathing exercise. He figures that on the post of that, right, as you draw your bow, you've got about 20 seconds where your nervous system, your adrenal, is that what you call it?
Adrenal, I think so.
Thank you.
Not a doctor.
I appreciate that, Omar. But it's calm. You've got a 20-second window where you're kind of at your peak, like you're leveled out, and like you can execute a good shot no matter how much your nerves are hammering. So I always try to do that. Yeah. Breathing exercise is super handy.
When do you do that? Do you do it like in the field?
I do it so like in a calling situation, the bull's beagling, I can tell he's closing the distance. And we're going to talk here a second about like picking your windows, picking your shot, because I think that's another reason people screw up. But as I'm developing what's going to happen in my mind visually. I'm like, okay, he's bugling here, he's probably going to walk here, and I'm like looking at my windows, I'm picking my windows. And as that's developing, I'm working on my breathing exercise. So I'm taking a deep breath in, I'm holding it for 30 seconds, I'm letting it out really long, and I'm repeating that over and over and over. Like that bull I shot last year in Colorado, that was like a spot and stock situation where that bull was bedded and he had 6 cows, and the cow was like 60 yards from me, and I knew at some point he was going to get up and like make a loop around those cows. So that entire time, which I was probably within 60 yards of those cows for 35, 40 minutes, the whole time I'm doing it. Deep breath in, hold it, kick it out, calm down, just like calming my nerves, my adrenal.
I could definitely do. I could definitely do a better job with that.
Sometimes you don't have the time.
Myself, but I definitely could do some breathing work.
Yeah, and I'm also talking to myself. I'm working my way through the process. Yeah. Like level. Pull into the wall, pull the wheels off, mantra at the end of it. I will. And, just like thinking my way through the shot and letting it break. And then, follow through is a big one.
Huge one.
Practice that at the range, practice on, holding your bow arm out, let it go forward, natural feedback, just let that follow through go. And the best shots that I've ever had on animals in the woods is like when I've seen that arrow the entire way. Yeah. You're just watching it, sinks in, you're like dead.
One of my favorite days to shoot, like to practice shoot, kind of that real world scenario, even though it's not real world, obviously, but on shoulder, if I ever lift shoulders or back, I'll go straight out of the garage from lifting and I'll go shoot 50 arrows because it's a very comparable feeling of like that noodle arm, heavy arm.
Yeah,
like
fatigue.
You feel like you have no strength because your adrenal system is maxed out, where you feel weak, right? Like that's when I'm amped up like that. The most like tangible thing I can talk about is how weak I feel. Like I just feel like I have noodle arms. I feel like I have no strength, nothing. Right? Yeah. It's just like, how the hell am I going to even pull my bow back? That's kind of how I feel. And so I love days like that to go straight from lifting, literally just walk out the garage and go shoot 50 straight arrows immediately. And it like gives me that familiar feeling where it's like, okay, I can make shots like this. And that's that confidence builder of like, okay, I feel so weak right now, but I'm making good shots because of the process.
Man, confidence is everything too.
Yeah.
I'll say that. I'll just throw this in. So I was on the way down here driving today. I listened to this podcast. It's Johnny Knoxville, and then there's a co-host, can't remember her name. Ella Baker, I think's her name. Elna Baker. Anyway, so they have this podcast called I'm Pretty Sure I Can Fly. And it's like they have guests on it that are just like people that do amazing things. Just some of them are fighters. They're just skydivers, had a tight rope walker. But they had Courtney DeWalter on there. So Courtney DeWalter pretty much, I would say,
The-
arguably the best long distance runner of our time.
Absolute
Anyway,
beast.
absolute animal. But she was talking about, she ran a marathon and then she was like, oh, I want to, what else can I do? So then she did like a 50K and then she did a 50 miler. And I think the first time she said she did a 100 miler, she
quit.
She quit at mile 60.
Yeah.
And she said at mile 60, she had to like sit there at this aid station for like 2 hours before they could get her out in a truck. And she had to watch people come through that were like coming through the aid station and then keep going. And like one of the things that she talked about was just like the lessons that she learned from like watching, you know, people keep going and like mindset there. And one of the things she mentioned, which I thought was really interesting, I think it pertains to this, is they asked her the question, like, what was your self-talk like prior to quitting? So she talked about this 10-mile section prior to quitting, like 50 to 60 miles. And she was like, my self-talk in those 10 miles was just straight negative. Just like, you can't do it. You can't do it. You hurt too bad. This hurts too bad. This sucks. You can't do it. You can't do it. And she's like, and like, I just basically talked myself out of it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like the same thing when it comes to making a shot on an animal.
Yeah.
If you go into that situation, you draw your bow and you're like, man, I'm probably going to mess this up. Like, I'm probably not going to kill this animal. It's right here. Like, this is probably not going to work out, you know? Like, negative self-talk is the worst thing that you can do.
Yeah.
Like, it's the worst.
In a way softer example, and I can't use the words that I want to use right now. In a way softer example, we'll just leave it at that. It's like the golf thing. If you ever pull out a golf club and you're like, oh, I can't hit this club. This is out of bounds. So yeah, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, like that's absolutely what's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing I thought was really interesting too that she said, I'll end on that. But she said, she's like, you know, in that moment, I probably couldn't have. And she's like, I've had lots of moments since then where physically I couldn't do it. Like, I know I probably couldn't do what I'm going to do. But I've convinced myself that I can.
Yeah.
Like, she's talked herself into it. Like, mentally, she's talked herself into it. And I think you can do that in the elk woods when a bull comes in and making a shot. I think you can fake it. I think you can tell yourself, I'm going to make this shot.
Yeah.
Like, any self-doubt, just push it out. Like, convince yourself that this is going to happen. Like, absolutely going to happen. Make your shot.
I
Burn the
completely
boats.
agree.
Burn the boats. That's it. I like that.
Yeah. My thing, which I've said before, my thing is getting ahead of myself, like negatively, like, oh, he's probably not going to come into range. He's probably going to constantly stop. Like, it's going to happen the way it happens, whether he does or doesn't. But like, focus on where is his shot? Where could he possibly walk through? Like, I have to stop getting ahead of myself.
Yeah. Be analytical with it,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, for sure.
So elk are big animals. I've got a quick question then. It kind of pertains into this. Maybe
The
slightly.
biggest animals.
Oh,
The
are
biggest
they?
antlers.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, didn't know that.
Keep going.
But they have a giant shoulder.
Yes.
So, and that process is going on. How are you thinking about where you're going to try to aim on that bull to not touch that shoulder? Are you consciously aware of the shoulders all the time? Are you holding tight to the shoulder? Are you going a little bit back? Like, where's the aim spot that you're going for on a bow in the heat of the moment? Obviously, his legs are moving forward and backwards all the time. Like, is he stepping? Like, when he finally stops, like, how tight are you going on the shoulder and why?
This is one I think about a lot because, like, do you guys remember the old pick a spot? Like,
Yeah.
that was like a thing, right?
Yeah,
Everybody had
picking individual hair.
everybody had it on their bow. They had it on sights. You know, it was
Yeah.
like pick a spot. And inevitably, every hunting situation with a bow I've ever been in, at some point during a stalk or when a bull's coming in, I've said that to myself, pick a spot. I don't ever remember.
To
Very,
pick a
very
spot.
rarely do I remember thinking like, okay, I picked a spot and I aimed
Yeah.
at that spot. And that's just me being honest. I would love to tell you that I did. I was like, oh, that tuft of hair that was, you know, muddied
Yeah.
up from a wallow, I aimed at that and I hit that. I don't know how else to tell people other than just like, I've looked at enough elk. I've thought about it enough that to me, I'm like, just off the shoulder, center mass.
Yep.
And every hunting situation is different. Like, if a bull comes in, he's slightly quartering to you. I've killed elk that way. You know, 17 yards. I shot a bull on our hunt in,
Yeah, that's what I
in
was going to
Wyoming.
bring up. You held it tight because of
Tight,
his quartering.
right tight to the shoulder. I can't tell you like how I did that or why I did it. It was just like in the moment I was looking at that animal and I was like, where do I need to aim to kill that animal? And I
Yeah.
was analyzing it just as quick as I possibly could. I was in the bow, in the peep, and I was executing a shot. I don't know how you get that other than just like thinking about it constantly
And
then
reps.
and reps.
It's just like, yeah, just reps.
Reps.
The only thing with elk specifically, like I'll just consistently remind myself, low is better than high and back is better than forward. It's like, it's just my constant reminder when I'm hunting elk, which is very particular to elk, right? Like you can bust through a shoulder on a deer and tuck it in tighter. With elk, just wherever way they're facing and like whatever their body angle is, I'm constantly just low's better than high and back's better than forward.
I mean, there's like a few things. So if an elk is quartering away, I'm always thinking about the opposite front leg.
Yeah,
so I'm
that's
aiming, I'm lining up my pins with the opposite front leg so that entry point is going to be, wherever it lands on this side, it's going to angle up and through the chest cavity and through the vitals. And ultimately that arrow is going to end up either just inside the front leg or, right in that front shoulder on the opposite shoulder.
Yeah.
So I do think about that. I look at the opposite front leg.
Visually, I look at that a lot.
I do think about leg angle. So I remember the first bull I ever killed. I had my dad with me. He was right off my shoulder, and we're watching this bull. He's feeding out into this little open meadow. It's 48 yards, and we're watching. And I remember that bull having his front leg back, and my dad saying like, "Wait." Front leg went forward. He's like, front leg forward, there's your shot. And like my dad, I remember him very vividly saying like, there's your shot. And I was like, okay. And I remember since then thinking, okay, front leg forward, kind of opening up that pocket. I look for that.
Yeah.
So that's part of like, just like little nuances of like picking the moment, picking the exact moment.
I am
the
not
location.
a spot shooter. I've never shot a spot. And I
wish I was. I wish I could tell you that like I picked a spot and I hit that, right behind the pin.
I honestly have no shame in that either, though. Like I'm not a spot shooter. I never have been. Like that's not how I mentally shoot, right? Like,
Let's say if you can do it.
For sure. If you can get yourself,
if you can remind yourself, like, hey,
in
pick
that
that
moment when
spot
you're
and
doing
aim
it.
at that spot, do it. It's just hard to remember in
It
that
is.
moment for me.
It is.
Yeah. One thing I want to talk about, and I kind of brought it up a little bit, is this is kind of like another thing that I think is a super common mistake, and I've seen it a bunch of times, is people not picking the timing of their shot, not picking an open window. And I think a lot of times, especially when you're hunting elk, I'm looking at the scenario as it's developing, and I'm like picking my windows of like, okay, he walks behind that tree, I'm going to draw my bow when his head is behind that tree. Or if he turns his head, he's got his cows, he turns his head, I'm going to draw my bow then, right? So I'm picking, when I break it down, I'm thinking of moments that I'm going to draw my bow, because he's going to stop and look at you, because they're going to pick up on the movement, right? So you got to pick a moment to draw your bow. You have to pick the moment to stop the bull. So I see people all the time not stopping the bull. It's like they come to full draw, the bull walks through their window, and it's like they just forget that they have the ability to stop that animal in that window and shoot him. So that's like a super common mistake. The other common mistake I see is that people stop the bull too soon.
Yeah.
So bull will walk behind a tree, they'll come to full draw. You can see the thing developing. You're like, okay, as soon as he takes that step into that opening and he is broadside wide open in the open, then stop the bull. They'll stop him early, and he'll like throw on the brakes, and like all you can see is his antlers and his head, I've seen that happen a bunch of times.
I've watched quite a few videos of that, or just not stopping bulls altogether.
Yeah, they just let them run through.
Yeah.
Are you always cow calling? You're just making a random noise, or just some cow call with your voice?
I'll let Lorenzo answer that one. He's a pro at this.
Let me give you your best bull stopping noise.
No, an old good family friend, an old cowboy of mine. I've learned this as a kid, because I've been hunting elk in Utah for a long time, and this where I just killed this spike, very long time, and we'd hunted with this old family friend since the beginning, and I meow like a cat, like just straight meow, and I tangentially, obviously, like I don't know what the science is behind it, but it works every time.
You just give it a meow.
You have to give the people what they deserve right now. Give us a meow.
I can't.
Like a Persian cat meow.
I'm not in the elk woods,
Hairless.
so it won't sound quite right, but it'll be something in the form of meow, like just a straight
Just a mew.
cat meow.
I do EO. So EO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll let you fill in the last part of this, but he would always laugh, and he was like, "You know why I do that?" I'm like, "Why?" Because nothing's scared of a PUSSY. And it was always like a family joke with us, right? So I've done it I mean, literally have done it since day one of bow hunting. Is if I need an animal to stop, I'll just meow like a cat because nothing's scared of a pussy.
Yeah. I've seen people. I mean, if you're really good with the mouth read, you can do that and stop them. But I've found it really effective just to verbally go, yeah.
Yeah, and it's especially like in that moment too, especially if they are completely unaware of you being there. Really, any noise is gonna stop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because they're gonna try to figure out what's going on first. If you've got the wind and you've got the shadow, and they're completely unaware, they're gonna stop with any noise. The meow has just kind of been a family gesture of ours from our cowboy friend.
Yeah, and to add to that, you should be at full draw if you're going to stop the bull.
Oh, no question.
Don't stop the bull and then try to draw your bow.
Well,
it's going to look right at you.
The draw thing that you brought up is absolutely a thing. Like in archery, making the shot is one thing, but you have to get to full draw to make a shot. And it's like the backswing in a golf swing. It is equally as important as everything else, even though you're going away from the ball. So you have to, in your mind, pick that moment of when is the right time to draw. So I don't tip him off too soon, or he doesn't come in to get fully broadside or anything like that. Like, it is a very important role of an archer, is like, where is the point that I draw?
One of the mistakes I see people do a lot is that they draw their bow too quick. So like a bull, you'll be calling a bull, and a lot of times in your elk country, it's pretty thick, right? Timbered, and you'll catch movement, and your first reaction is to grab your bow and draw it.
Yeah.
I did the same thing in an antelope blind. So like I see an antelope sneaking in the corner of my blind. My first reaction is to grab my bow. When in reality is you need to resist that urge pretty hard. Like, resist the urge to immediately go for your weapon as soon as you see the animal. Resist that urge to rip your bow, straight back as soon as you see the elk. You just get excited because you're like, oh, there he is. He's right there. He's in range. I'm going to jerk my bow back and get ready, right? You just like have to fight that urge so much and like pick your moment to draw your bow. You have to be very analytical about it.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
And I'll even say about my best friend Clay Hill once again. When I was on that sheep hunt with him, there was he's outfitted for so long and not been the hunter. We had these rams. They were in a band of 8. We have it on film. We actually should put this out there because it's a good learning lesson. But I'm behind him like 10 yards, and he's up in the last juniper tree where these rams are feeding across. They're like at 40 yards. And the whole time you can hear me on the camera saying, draw, Clay, draw.
Yeah.
And I'm like trying to get his attention. But he's been a guide for so long and not a hunter.
He's just watching.
He just is watching. And then finally when his ram stepped out, which was the second to last, then he went to draw. Well, the first ram picked him off. It's like I could see their backs coming over this little rise, and I'm trying to get his attention. Clay, draw now, draw. And he never did. And so finally when his ram second to last won and he tried to draw, they all busted because he had a lead ram just pinned him down immediately.
Right.
It's like it's an important thing to like pick that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to get to full draw before you can even make a shot.
Yeah.
How long have you been at full draw? On a situation like that where you try to draw back early and he steps out in the open, have you been in?
I've been pretty lucky. I would say at the most maybe like 35, 40 seconds.
Ooh, it's not bad.
I've seen some holds.
Yeah.
I watched Neville one time in New Mexico legit hold a bow back for probably 2.5 minutes.
At that one bull I was coming down.
Yeah, coming down the hill, and that was
he
one of
was
those.
shaking.
That was one of those situations where I was standing behind him, and I felt like he probably. Pardon me for saying this, Neville, but love you. But I remember thinking like he probably stopped that bull too early. He probably made that sound a little bit too soon before he actually cleared your window. But he was at full draw for a really long time, like 2.5 minutes, like shaking. Like I was like, ooh, with a hinge. I was back there just watching him, like, oh man.
I think we sailed into the air.
I'm hurting for you. Yeah. So, but I mean, be prepared to, draw it. I mean, ultimately, here's the thing is like, if you stop that bull at the right time, you shouldn't be at full draw for very long. You should be able to execute a shot because he should be in the open. Like if you got to full draw at the right time and you stopped him at the right time, you should be cutting that arrow in like 5 to 6 seconds. Yeah. Like you should be cutting that arrow loose and letting it go.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. That was a good one. I have a bunch of notes here. Maybe we'll just jump to the next one. We're going to have like a 4-hour podcast, but that might be all right. So one of my notes I wrote down is, you may be in the clear if an elk hears you or sees you, but if he smells you,
Game over.
Game over. Yeah, you're absolutely game over. So I want to talk about that. just work me through thermals. And I mean, how do you guys approach archery elk hunting in regards to wind?
Just going to this weekend with my wife, the mornings were as consistent as it gets because we're hunting in kind of a basin bowl, and the head of the basin is pointed to the west, so the face of it's pointed to the east. So it's just getting that morning sunlight immediately. So thermals start rising very early. Ground heats up, and it was warm this weekend. I mean, it's a very consistent thermal pattern, really anywhere if a storm's not coming in, right? I mean, it's pretty consistent. So I mean, just play them as consistently as possible with what the topography lends itself to, right? Like if I was on the opposite side of the hill, the thermals would be falling for a lot longer if I was on the west side than being on the east side. And but when storms roll in, I don't know. This is one where it's more of like just a gut feel. I get really aggressive in stormy conditions because the wind's not going to hold. It's not going to hold. But if I do have a good wind, I will push pretty damn hard to just take advantage of that moment. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And that's like a gut feel thing for me is, if the wind's switching, but then I get like a consistent gust and I can really feel a stiff wind, I will push pretty damn hard to try to get it done during that, 5 minutes of that wind direction.
Yeah. How you feeling about wind, Omar? You're a year in. What'd you learn about wind when you're out there?
Honestly, I had to watch a YouTube video the other day, like in full transparency, and just to, like, it's been a year since I'd gone out hunting and everything, so I had to like refresh the memory. But I mean, it's it's like the number one thing I'm paying attention to. It's like if the wind's good, I can make it stalk. If not, then I should probably hold back. But that's actually a good point you made on the aggressiveness of like the storm and stuff, because we had that buck coming in on my hunt where that wind was switching, but you guys didn't see the storm.
No, we didn't realize the storm until you told me to look down the valley. I'm like, oh, that's why the wind just switched. Yeah. The other thing too on thermals specifically, I think not enough people don't pay attention to what the ground is either. Like, is it rocky or is it like soft dirt and soil? Is it under tree canopy? Because all those things change the thermal dynamics of how long it's going to take to start going up as opposed to coming down.
Yep.
Like if it's super rocky and pretty open, those thermals are going to rise like almost immediately of the sun coming up. If you're under a little bit of a tree canopy and it's kind of soft, darker soil, maybe it's a little bit wet from dew in the morning,
cooler.
Like your thermals are going to be falling for quite a while.
Good point.
Like I think the what the ground is actually made out of is super important when you're just playing the thermal game.
Yeah.
Brady, talk me through wind. Give me a 30,000 foot view on wind. What do animals do in wind and why?
What animals do in wind?
Like thermals.
Hot air rises, cold air sinks.
Okay. Yeah.
There you go.
That's as easy as it goes.
I have in my notes. Simply broke down. Hot air rises.
Is that what you were looking for?
Yeah.
I got way too deep.
No, it was perfect.
Yeah. So in the morning, most thermals are going to go downhill, down the mountain, because cold air is going to be sinking into the valleys and the little, basins. And then middle of the day, the thermals start going uphill because hot air wants to rise, and so you can use that to your advantage.
Yeah, and generally elks, I mean any animal for that matter, they're gonna use the wind to their advantage. And elk, it's like I said in the front, you can get away. Elk are a big social animal, right? They make a fair amount of noise. Like you can get away with a little bit of noise. It's like you said with Turtle, he's running up and down the hill and he's raking trees, right? Bulls rake trees, cows break branches. Usually when a herd comes in, like you can hear them walking, right?
For a long ways.
Yeah, a long ways. Yeah, like they're pretty noisy social animal, right? So you can get away with some sound, not every sound, but you can get away with a lot of sound. Sight, like movement, they don't like. They don't put up with movement, especially if they pin you. Smell, they just absolutely, you have to watch your wind for sure.
The wind is
everything.
An elk will literally bust you from hundreds of yards away if they just get a slight scent of you.
So the point I was thinking about was, generally speaking, elk feed uphill in the morning.
Yeah.
So you got the thermals, the slope's cool. They're going to feed uphill with the thermals coming down into their face. Yeah, they're going to feed into the wind. Of an evening, it can be, I've seen elk go uphill in the evening. Same type of deal. When those thermals have kind of cooled and they're starting to come back downhill. Same kind of deal. I've seen them come down in the evening, prior to that switch. So that was like one of my notes. But generally, elk are moving uphill in the morning. And like when you're archery elk hunting, that's kind of your prime time. Like you want to get on a bull, you want to get him bugling, he's probably headed uphill. So you want to kind of play that wind and, think about it. the other note that I had about wind is you've got kind of that transitionary period where that's where your thermals are going to be the most unsteady, right?
Yeah.
So when that slope is starting to warm up, they're starting to switch. You're going to get some eddies and some swell, some movement in the thermals at that time. So it's best, in my opinion, is to kind of wait those periods out before you really start to get after it, right?
Especially if it's a consistent day with no storm
For
or
sure.
anything. Yeah, just wait. That's not your time to go.
For sure. Yeah, wait if you have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and always play the wind. The other thing I thought was interesting, I hadn't really thought about this, but I read somewhere or I heard somebody say, I can't remember, but they, like the first few days of an elk hunt, they'll actually make note of like what time of day they're feeling that transition to like, okay, when is the wind, the thermals steady? Like when can I definitely know for a fact that, okay, that wind is switched, it's moving uphill, it's heated up.
Yeah, that's a good tip.
Yeah, just a good tip. And it's just like a little reminder, you can, few days, 2-3 days into an elk hunt, you ought to have a pretty damn good idea of the time of day when those thermals are going to be steadiest.
Yeah. You ever notice the thermals changing just because of a single cloud cover?
Oh, for sure.
It's wild, isn't it?
Yeah, I hate it.
It's the worst.
Yeah.
Like thermals can be so consistent, and then all of a sudden just one cloud in the sky covers up the sun.
Yep.
And it'll switch immediately.
And it'll flip.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know how you battle
Manage
that.
that.
Yeah, manage that. I will say it's often good if you can get on elk, if you can come in from them from, directionally, like on the same plane as them.
Perpendicular.
So, perpendicular to them. So
that's my go-to.
Yeah, so that neither, up or down thermals has that much of effect.
Always trying to parallel, be perpendicular to them.
Yeah.
How are you trying to work through shooter caller situations with wind and trying to like pull a bull in front of a shooter?
Same thing, just like trying to keep the wind in your favor.
Try to set them up, and you're up down here thinking, the wind's going to go this way. So you're trying to set that shooter up, obviously, to get the shot before bull catches the shooter's wind.
For sure. Yeah, because a bull is going to circle downwind of you. Like he's in most cases, he's going to come in, he's going to try to work around you, probably in close proximity, Maybe he's going to be within your lane, but he's going to try to work that wind to his favor to the caller.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. Try to get your shooter out ahead, like you're saying, to keep the wind in his advantage before that bull actually works around, gets the wind, and then busts you both. So yeah, those little things you got to keep in check.
Yeah.
You got to remember it. But I do think like a lot of it you can't avoid. A lot of it you can though. I see guys all the time. They're like, "Oh, I'm just going to go for it," and wind be damned, and just never works out.
It never works out.
Do you do anything with your clothes or anything prior to like a hunt?
I wash them.
Well, but like
I don't use like super flowery scent, but
Yeah.
I don't use any.
I don't do anything special.
I don't do anything special. I don't carry like deodorant that's scent killer. I don't take scent killer wipes or anything like that. It just.
You know, the bin of sagebrush that you dump all your clothes in?
I have done that in the past,
that
but
too.
ultimately I don't know.
Elk are too good. Elk are too good.
I just don't know that it matters because if they catch your wind, they're gonna catch you.
yeah.
You just sweat too much when you're out there.
And elk are just too good at it. Like it's what they do. Like if you watch, like I was telling my wife this last weekend because we were in herds of 50 to 100 cows. I'm like, just watch. There's always a group of cows. Some will be feeding, but there's always the ones that are just whipping their nose around,
Century.
just have it up in it. And they're not stiff. They're not, they're not bothered by anything, but they are just doing it just because. Like, and they're just constantly just throwing their nose in the wind. And it just takes the slightest little scent for an elk and it's game over.
Yeah. Got to play the wind.
But meanwhile,
Gotta play one.
on the noise side, it's like you can get away with so much noise. It's actually, that's what's fun about elk too. Because even rolling in with a posse, it almost makes the elk more interested.
Yeah,
If you're rolling in with a posse and twigs are snapping and branches are breaking and like just not paying attention, it almost makes the elk more interested in what's going on over there.
Especially if you're using calls, if you're making cow call noises, maybe you're bugling a little bit. I mean, that elk is assuming that you're a herd elk, right? He's
Yeah.
heard cows, he's heard bulls. I mean, he's been in the woods enough to know that like other elk make noise. So it's almost like
You don't have to
herd
like
elk.
tiptoe with stalkers on like a mule deer or anything. You just cover country, just ground. Don't even worry about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Makes it fun.
Yeah. Man, I forgot one and I wanted to go back to like shot scenarios. So I'm just going to revisit it real quick. So one of the common mistakes, I've done it before, I see people make a lot, is that first instinct that they have when a bull's coming in is to like hit their knees or to find cover to like make their profile smaller. That's a huge mistake.
Massive.
Yeah, I would prefer to stand, like even if you get caught and you're in the wide open, you know, a bull comes in super quick on you. I would prefer, having made this mistake a bunch of times, to stay on my feet, because it allows me at that point to pivot and turn. If that bull is still within my effective shooting range, and make a shot. Whereas if I go immediately straight to my knees, I'm so limited to movement. Like I can't take 2 steps easily to my right with my bow at full draw and execute a shot. Yeah. I've done that a bunch of times. I would tell you personally, like, don't go to your knees, resist the urge, even though it will be your first urge. Mm-hmm. It'll be like the first thing that you'll want to do. You want to jump behind a bush. You want to jump behind a tree to stay covered. You want to hit your knees to like lower your profile. Like, don't do it.
Yeah. What I have done a lot of, what I typically do is, like, if I am going to stop moving, I'll find a tree and just lean my left shoulder against it. Because then that leaves obviously my right arm to draw or anything. I'm still standing, I can pivot, but I just put my left shoulder against the tree to cut a little bit of silhouette. That's obviously not always an option.
Or stand in front of a tree.
Yeah, that's what I'll do. So if it's like low country and don't have an aspen tree with a trunk or something that I can lean against, I'll just stand right in front of it, but out in the open where I actually have a shot and don't have to move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I get a gear question.
Sure.
I'm going to ask it because I know people ask it every time we release a hunt film about elk hunting, and they see quiver setup. Quiver, Are you a quiver on the bow guy?
No.
Or the quiver on the hip using the total peep setup, and why do you prefer one over the other?
It's primarily just like accuracy. Like, I don't like a quiver on my bow because I think, one, it's a little louder. I don't like the weight that it adds to the bow. I don't like the fact that it's like a wind sail on my bow, so you get all the wind blowing through your veins and the hood of the quiver and everything. I just don't like the way that it feels. So that's the primary reason I just use a hip quiver versus a quiver on my bow. And I don't feel like a quiver on your bow is even any faster. I feel like a hip quiver is just as quick. I mean, it's a quiver, but it's just on your hip. It's actually closer to my hand.
Yeah.
Does it ever get in the way?
Yeah.
Crawling around deadfall and stuff like that?
Sometimes.
You have to deal with it?
Yeah, it's not
you know
like,
it's there and you'll get used to it?
Yeah, but the other thing is like, I don't know. Like, I just feel like I'm much more aware of it on my hip. Like, I'm more aware of like how many arrows I have in my quiver. I'm just used to it at this point. So to me, it's just like natural to like go straight to my arrow quiver and pull an arrow off my hip quiver.
It's noticeable when you're down to one,
Yeah.
Yeah,
when you've done a quiver down.
I will say it does take some time getting used to. Like, you can't just go from hunting one season to never using a hip quiver and then expect it to be like the same.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what I didn't like it at first. I was like, I don't know if I like this thing. Like, I'm going over deadfall and it's like bugging me, but it just takes a little bit getting used to. And a lot of times what I found on my most recent, I was carrying it in my hands.
That's what I
like
do.
Being in those like low positions, like I was just carrying the quiver in my hands. I don't know if you've been into that situation too.
Yeah, you have to be mindful. Like, you don't sit back into a hillside with your nocks and put them straight into the dirt. Like, you have to think about it a little bit. Yeah, you want to be aware of it. But for me, it's just the advantage of how much better the bow feels in my hand at full draw when I'm executing a shot. To me, that's the bigger benefit. Yeah, I don't like a quiver on my
I just
bow.
don't like the way a bow looks with a quiver on it. It
Looks are
bothers
everything.
me. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't like the way it looks.
And it rattles.
There's
Yeah.
the practical of the noise and all that stuff, but I just think it looks bad.
I mean, here's the other thing is, like, how many people do you think tune their bow with their quiver on their bow with
0.
4 arrows in it?
0.
None. There's nobody that does that.
No one.
I guarantee you. And that
0,
bow,
yeah.
I mean, it might be minimal, but I guarantee you your bow is different.
Yeah.
It shoots differently. It tunes differently with a full quiver of full arrows.
I had got back to camp and I shot a couple arrows because I hadn't shot in like 5 days when I was 6 days or whatever, when I was going to meet up with these guys. And I had the quiver on my bow because like, I'm going to go back to camp. Like, quiver on my bow is just easy to hike out with and whatever. So I threw it on there and I was shooting. I was like, what happened here? And I realized it was the quiver on my bow. And I was like, I hate that feeling. And just sailing in the wind and like you shoot and just like a clunky thunk.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah, I don't either.
Hip quiver is a move.
And it looks like shit. Don't like it. The bows are so pretty. Why cover
Yeah.
them up?
Let's talk through call scenarios. So you're out hunting elk. You guys are in New Mexico hunting elk. You're getting ready to leave next week. What's your approach to calling?
Well, this is why I love spike hunting with the family every year on Labor Day. Just gets me back into it. Like, I try a bunch of stuff. Just testing the rut activity, what they're responding to, challenges or calf, challenge bugles or calf calls or lost cow calls, stuff like that. And it just kind of gets you back into the, right? Like we haven't done it in a year. Just kind of that nice stress-free.
So is your approach to calling then experimental? What'd you say?
During the spike hunt for sure.
What about during the rut? Like you guys leave next week. What's your approach to calling going to be like?
Listening first and foremost. Just straight listening.
You're not going to send out any calls?
No. Like if you like the go-to strategy of going into a real, obviously where I was this last weekend is going to have no comparison to where I'm going. They're 1,000 miles apart.
Different stage.
Different, just in different time of year, all that stuff. But the first day, first morning, first night, just listening, how vocal are the cows? How responsive are the bulls to the cows? And how responsive are the bulls to each other?
So you start with cow call?
I always start with a cow call. Like if I'm working in on elk for sure. But just kind of doing the homework and paying attention to like how responsive are the bulls to other bulls coming in right now? Like are they peeled off and all have their groups of cows? Because they're not going to be responsive to each other then. But if one's got a big group of cows and a couple of bulls are looking for cows, they're obviously going to be very responsive to each other. And it's pretty easy to pick up on, in my opinion, like those first couple days or, first couple hunts even, just morning and afternoon. And they're just mimicking. It's like, it gets back to when I used to be a huge waterfowler. Like when we'd go scout, you'd watch the ducks that were feeding or on a roost or loafing or whatever, watching how they're responding to other birds coming in, right? Like, are the geese being aggressive to the other geese coming in? Like, is the food limited so they don't want these geese to land? Right? And it's the whole thing. So it's just being responsive and mimicking what I've been hearing the first couple days.
Right.
If that made any sense to compare it to waterfowl.
What were you going to say? I could see Brady's head spinning.
So Omar arrive at this whatever state you're going to. I'm not going to say it, even though you've said it a million times.
New Mexico.
You guys can't. You guys are going there. 15, 20 mile an hour winds.
Yeah.
Multiple days in a row.
Yeah.
You can't hear anything. You can't hear elk be elk. You can't hear anything like that.
Don't put that on them.
How then?
Yeah, knock on wood. That's bad juju. How dare you?
How then are you going to locate elk if you can't hear them with your little cow call? Are you going to then?
I'm going home.
Your little cow call.
I'm going home.
Because you have to be able to call elk and hear elk to kill elk during the rut with a bow. So what are your strategies then if it's windy out? Are you going to try to get kiter in areas to try to hear them talking? Because obviously the wind's going to drown out everything. So what do you do on the days it's super windy? You can't just sit at camp. Like, you got to do something. So
I'm going home. Going to get pizza.
Because it's a common thing. Like, you go
honestly,
to places super windy.
I would bury into like deep timber canyons.
Yeah. Just try to sneak in and then try to listen, or maybe.
Where there's
elk don't like wind. Mule deer don't like wind. They're not going to be
Humans
they're not going to be out in the windy. They're going to find a pocket. They're going to find whatever. Like, let's say that's a southwest wind, right?
Yeah.
They're going to pull over into a canyon, like northeast facing. They're going to get out of the wind.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking like. When you get to a spot, you have a giant basin.
Yes,
you'd be like, I could sit there in the evening. I could hear elk maybe a couple miles away. Like, all right, there they are. But if it's windy, you can't do that.
But yeah, to the point is what I'm saying is like I'm going to go to the areas where it's not windy, and then I'm going to test my calls,
and
then
I'm just going to dive into the timber canopy and start calling.
Yeah. The other thing that I would say to this, and I know you're asking him, I'll just throw in my 2 cents. The other thing is like. Being adaptable on an elk hunt. So like if you get to an area and whether the elk are calling or not, and like maybe you went into it with your plan and like I'm going to call a bull in and that's how I'm going to shoot it. If you get into it and it's like, hey, I've got this 10 days to hunt, and the elk just they're not rutting that hard. Like whatever reason, maybe there's not the estrus cow in that canyon, but there's elk, right? I'm going to adapt. Like I'm going to find what is a weakness that the elk have in this area when I've got to hunt that I'm going to exploit. Sorry. Google. Anyway, I'm going to find like a saddle. I'm going to find, if it's thick timber. Wallow. I was talking to my brother last night on the phone because he's hunting an area with his kid that's super, super thick. He's like, man, there's tons of jackstraw. There's like lots of standing lodgepole pines, just like thick as can be. And he's like, but man, there's some good elk trails through there. I'm like,
sit an elk trail.
Elk are going to take the least path of resistance. Like they're going to use elk trails. So maybe early on before they're talking, if you can't find elk any way else, still hunt. So you could still hunt through that on an elk trail, or you could just simply sit an elk trail. So you might end up having to be adaptable.
Yeah, I agree. I would in that scenario, Brady, I would just go to straight still hunting in the timber,
Mm-hmm.
finding wallow elk trails and just still hunt it as slow as possible and try to pick up movement.
So I want to go back to calling though. So you start with cow call,
Yeah.
and then you just listen for a response. There's a lot of things that you said that I liked, and it's kind of my approach to elk hunting in general. Like with calling, I think there are people out there that are like, oh, I hear a bugle or I hear a cow call and I know exactly like what that bull's trying to say. I'm not that good. Like I feel like I can tell the difference between like an aggressive bull that's like, look, there's two reasons that elk are going to come in, right? Cow call, he's looking for love. Bugle, he's looking to fight, right?
Yeah.
So I can tell the difference between like a locator bugle and an aggressive, I want to fight bugle, right? But there's a lot of bugles I can't. You know what I mean? So a lot of it is just like, I'm just testing.
Yeah.
Like I feel like a lot of it is just like this process of elimination for me. Even though I've killed a lot of elk, I still feel like I'm testing things out.
Yeah. See what they respond to.
See what they're
Fishing, trying different
I'm
lures.
fishing.
Yeah.
Waterfowl, trying to mimic what you saw the first day. It's that same thing where, I mean, a bull is going to bugle to fight or looking for love, and also to round up his cows. And those are the ones that are like very hard to figure out. Like why did he just make that noise? You know what I mean? Like why is he even bugling in the first place? He's just mad at his cows for whatever reason. Like we all have seen through the glass where they're just screaming their heads off at the cows. It's kind of like a real life American household. Man of the house
I hope not.
screaming at everyone.
I mean,
Just yelling
I
at
hope not,
everybody.
but
But yeah, it's the process of elimination of like, okay, because every bull is going to be different too. Just because one bull's looking for a fight doesn't mean they all are. That bull could just be.
I think more are not looking for a fight than are.
Completely.
I think your biggest herd bulls, they're not really looking for a fight.
It's the last thing they're looking for.
Yeah, they got cows. They're like, man, I'm chilling. I've got this whole herd of cows. I'm awesome. Like I'm just gonna. Another bull comes in, bugles at me. I'm just gonna round up my cows and
a
get
bull that
out.
just got his ass kicked and lost his cows, and he's looking for new ones. He's typically looking for a fight.
Yep.
From what I've seen, a bull that is just starting to pull into rut grounds, he's looking to fight and round up cows.
Looking for cows.
Like those are the ones. But beyond that, like challenge bugles are pretty tough.
Yeah.
Like in my opinion, they don't work very often.
Yeah, they don't work for me that often, I should say. I guess they work for some people on the right bull on the right day.
Yeah, you just got to catch the right bull.
Yeah, for me. So I'm with you. I usually start with cow call. If I haven't heard anything, I'll throw out a locator bugle sometimes just to like test the waters, see what bugles back.
Locator bugles work great. I mean, they're going to let you know where they are. But now how do you like actually get them to come to the call? They're not coming to the locator bugle. They're just kind of letting you know they're.
Yeah, like, hey, I'm over here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have in my notes, and I borrowed this from Jason Phelps when I was kind of thinking about this. So I'm going to borrow his words, but he says, resist the urge to bugle your way into a setup. And I think this is a super, super common mistake.
That's a much better way to say what I was very long-windedly saying.
No, you said different things. There was some nuggets. There's definitely nuggets in what you were saying, but this is like kind of a different thing I would even say is like, I think this is something that people do, especially new hunters, even myself, even right now. Like I throw out a bugle, bull bugles back. What do I want to do again?
Bugle.
I want a bugle. I want that bull to bugle back at me, baby. I want I want this conversation of he and I the entire way in. And I think it's like one of the worst things that you can do because you're basically giving that bull more and more and more information the more you bugle. So like I think it's a big mistake to get a response and then continue to bugle as you go at that animal. I think the only time that you should bugle is if you really feel like you've lost track of the herd. Like if that bull hasn't responded enough that you can kind of get a pinpoint on where you think he's at and you've moved that direction, sure, throw out a bugle again to try to like get a response to like keep up with them, to like figure out where they're going. But don't just like keep hammering away on the cow calls, keep hammering away on the bugle the whole way. Because I think every time that you do that, you're giving them more and more information.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, that one didn't sound quite right.
Yeah, that is different. That is like you and I, we've talked about this before because they have telescopic hearing.
Yeah, they can
pinpoint exactly where it's coming from. So when you shut off calling, it's like if I can see them, I am not calling because they can clearly see where this is coming from, and they're going to know an elk's not standing there.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, or they're like,
or just handing them information of where you're coming from.
Yeah,
'Cause
or
it's
yeah,
vice versa.
If you think about a herd bull, he's got his cows, and if I'm a bull and I'm bugling, and then 10 seconds later or an hour later, I'm like right next to him, I'm not right next to him. I use that, like I'm a half a mile. Like he can track me the whole way, right? Let's say that like he can pinpoint me. I'm getting closer. I'm just bugling. He's just going to be like, you know what? I don't want to deal with this bull.
So I'm just going to go over this.
I'm just going to go over the ridge. Yeah. I'm going to disappear. So I think the better approach is to bugle, get the response, and this will go into the next point. Don't go where elk are. Go where they're going. Predict on where you think they're going to go and go there, and then try to, but ideally what you do is you get a response, go to where those elk, you think you're going to be able to cut that distance to 100 yards, 150 yards, then test the waters. If they're bugling the whole time, great. Just keep following them, keep going until you cut that distance. But if they don't, cut the distance to the point where you think you're within a close proximity, then bugle, then cow call. I think people a lot they fall in love with those bugling bulls.
Very much agreed with that. Like very much so.
Brady, you fall in love with bugling bulls ever? Just want to hear them rip?
No.
I just heard my first bugles of the year. It's so. What's the word?
Magical.
It's the best.
I mean, magical is the easy word.
Euphoric?
The best. Euphoric. Yeah, it's just everything's right in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally, I pulled up to the cabin, sitting there. Wake up in the morning, having a cup of coffee. It's dark, and I hear a bugle. I'm like, we fucking made it.
Yeah.
We made it. It is September. Football's on.
We did it.
The temperatures are going to start dropping. Like it is. It's the best.
Mm-hmm.
It's everything.
It is a sign of fall in the West.
It is everything when you hear that first bugle.
Mm-hmm.
College football's on.
It's like my wife woke up and she came walking out. My first words were literally, "We made it."
Brady,
we made it to September.
Do you feel that tingling in your plums, Brady?
No.
That's September.
That's September.
You're not feeling it, huh? No. All right, fair enough.
When that buck gets out of his bag, feeding a little bit, I'm like,
gross.
oh yeah, we made it.
The buck that's so hard to stalk that doesn't let you know where he is.
Threw up in my mouth a little.
Gross.
What do you guys do about the bull that just like you get in, you have an interaction with him, you're in close. I know you guys, I think you had this happen in New Mexico, right? And then you think you're right there. You think he's coming, you're close, and then he just goes quiet and you don't, what do?
Go quiet.
Man, that's so hard, huh?
Match exactly what he's doing.
That's hard.
Go quiet and listen. Still hunt. Here's the other great thing about elk that we talked about them being loud. If they bust, if you're if you're close, like you're in the danger zone, if they bust, you know for sure they busted. You're gonna hear it.
It'll sound like a train going through the woods.
It's without a doubt. Like, yep, they got our wind. It's busted. It's game over.
Yep.
If they go quiet and you haven't heard anything bust, I go quiet too and just still hunt. Like he obviously doesn't want to talk. It's you walk into a room, it's like, oh, that guy doesn't want to talk, leave him alone. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things.
Yeah, and you're right, man. Like they will creep out. Like they can move through the woods pretty, decently quiet. And reality is they're probably not all that far from you. Mm-hmm. Like if you haven't heard them just absolutely bust timber and break every branch in the woods, they're probably pretty close.
Yeah,
yeah, and that's like you got to kind of resist that urge to just keep
hammering the calls.
And keep hammering.
The other thing too is I'm very self-aware that I am not Bo Brooks.
Yeah,
like
me too.
I'm very self-aware.
Yep.
Like I am trying to call the least amount as possible so they don't pick up on that I am not an elk.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I'm very self-aware of that.
Yeah. This leads into another point that I had that I think this is a good little note to make. And I had a phone call a couple of weeks ago with some guys from Georgia that are going out to hunt elk. And one thing is I was thinking about it after I talked to them. I think far too many people, they leave too soon. They give up on a hunt too quickly. And as I think about it, like what I was thinking about is I think a lot of times guys will get on to bulls in the morning, right? Like prime time, bulls are talking, they're bugling, they'll have some interactions with them. Maybe they won't come in. And they can kind of hear that bull just like keep going. Like, oh, now he's on that ridge, and he bugled. And, oh, now he's on that ridge. And like they just, oh, that bull's gone, right? He's just moving. And they give up on it, right? They're like, well, there goes that morning, right? Didn't get him. I think they give up on it too quick. I think one of the biggest mistakes you can do is like if a bull is still talking and you can still hear him, don't give up on him.
Keep going.
Keep going.
Dogging the herd.
Dog that herd, man.
No one wants to do that because they can cover some country, but
For
so
sure.
can you. And they are going to hold tight at some point.
Well-
And if they're letting you know where they are,
Yeah.
just dog them.
Will elk walk forever?
No. They'll walk a long ways, but not forever.
They can and inevitably an elk is headed in the morning. If you pick up on a herd of elk and they're bugling, they're talking, they're headed for bed at some point. Like they're not just going to, at least in my experience, they're not going to move all day long and just keep cutting country. Like they have some place in mind that they're going to go and they're going to bed up.
Mm.
And I think, in my opinion, like that is the best time to kill an elk. It's the best time is when they have moved off towards their bed, especially a herd bull that's got cows. He's going to move them towards, or they're going to lead him towards a bedding area. And at some point, those cows are like, okay, it's midday. I'm going to lay down. I'm going to take a 2 or 3 hour siesta. I threw that in for you, Omar.
Thank you. I picked up on that one.
So cultured.
They're going to take a siesta. And I think that's the best time to bring a herd bull back to you. So like if you've bird dogged him all morning long and you've kept him, kind of within earshot, those cows slow down, they head to bed, you close the distance, and then that bull's going to come back and he's going to check out that cow or that bull that he heard. I think it's one of the best times to kill a bull.
Completely agree, especially the herd bull.
Yeah.
Or even
satellite bull that's just hanging on the edges.
And
More so because he's like, he's horned up.
And honestly, even if you, that's for
Yes.
sure. Even if you can't get him killed before he lays down, like say he doesn't come back and check the cow call that you let off or bugle or whatever, and he does just lay down, getting set up on that bedded herd within 100 yards.
Do you remember, are you thinking about you and I when we were in New Mexico? That bull that I killed?
Yeah.
That's exactly what we did. We bird dogged them all morning long. And then we crept in and I was like, remember we sat above that whole herd all day.
And then when they started getting up, this is what I'm getting to is the personal experience. When they've laid down for the 2 or 3 hour siesta, and that bull does, he's got some energy back. He will come check something out.
For sure.
Like he's just was laid there for 3 hours. He's not, he didn't just cover a bunch of country. Like he's up. He wants to check shit out. He wants to breed. He wants to, he's up. He's obviously wants to be active, feeling frisky. If you can get set up within that 100-yard range of elk bedded, and then you do hear him up and you let out a couple calls, they seem to be, especially herd bulls, very responsive in that setup.
Yeah.
So is this also where you would recommend a like sleeping system and like a hunting style to someone who's going? Did like you recommend those Georgia guys that they
I do
follow the elk?
Yeah, I think because you might follow a herd all morning long, and even like Lorenzo and we did in New Mexico, and I ended up killing a bull that day. And that evening, right, we shot it mid-afternoon.
Like 2, 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock.
Right when they got out of their beds.
Yeah, right when they got up out of their bed, we killed the bull, and then we processed it, took care of it. We laid down that night. We immediately the next morning got
Picked
on
up the same herd,
and then Lorenzo kills the herd bull that morning.
Complete blind luck. That was not by skill.
I mean, and this is another point to make. Like, if you can get between two bulls that are arguing, just shut up and walk in between the two of them.
Yeah.
And let them do the work for you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the best case scenario when you've got two bulls talking to each other and they're like closing on a big battle. It's like watching Tyson and Holyfield. They're like coming in. You're like, I'm just going to wait right here and let one of them
be the
screw
referee.
up. Yeah,
100%.
Yeah. That's another thing. Like, let animals make mistakes.
Yeah, let
them screw up and come close to you. I think a lot of times we try to push it, and a lot of times if you're just patient and you put yourself in close proximity, like a lot of times they'll screw up.
Yeah. Like so what we were talking about with you and I's hunt, we had dogged them all day, the whole time, and we sat 120 yards, 150 yards off the herd. Then we started seeing little hooves through the bottom of the trees. We're like, oh, they're up. I think you let out 1 or 2 cow calls, and 3 minutes later, here comes a satellite bull.
Yep.
He wanted to check something out, and we just let him do what satellite bulls do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's part of that's just like knowing elk behavior and like knowing what a satellite bull is looking for, He's looking for a little lost cow off the side,
He doesn't want to get seen by the big cow
That's
or
right.
by the big bull
the
taking
big
his
bull.
cow.
Yeah.
But this is a good thing, though, you're talking about earlier, and then Omar was bringing it up a little bit, is like you said, those guys, they quit too early because the bull's going further and further away. I was like, oh, he's gone for the day. Like,
yeah, let's go back to camp.
But that's the thing how you can kill bulls is like what Omar's saying is carry your sleep system. Like you are literally carrying your entire camp on your back every single day. That way you can pursue that bull that's walking away from you. That way you can put yourself in a position to kill it elk. Because you're not having to like, oh, it's going to be way too far away. No, I have to come all the way back to camp later on. Just have it on your back every single day. And I'm going to give a shout out to your article you wrote that we published about should you backpack hunt for elk. And this is basically that same thing. Like you talked about all the strategies, there's pros and cons to both. Yeah, you can come back to a base camp every day, or you could dog a herd. You don't kill it that night. Well, you're set up in the morning. Like you guys killed one and then you killed the one the next day because you had your camp on your back.
I want to go to bed with elk bugling and I want to wake up with elk bugling. Like within reasonable striking distance.
Yeah. And you're saving so much more energy. Sure, you're burning energy throughout the day, but you're not even to hike 3 miles back to camp.
Trail has been doing this for a long time. And he showed me the light of it 7 years ago. Like I experienced it with somebody who knew how to bivvy style and dog these elk. And literally the first day where we wake up with elk, chase them all day, go to bed with elk, I'm like, oh, this is it. This is how you kill elk in the backcountry. Like no question about it.
Besides that, it's just fun.
And it's fun.
Yeah.
So he showed me the light, and literally in the first day, we didn't kill him the first day, but we dogged him all the first day. We killed on the second day.
Yep.
You did. That whole first day, I'm like, oh, this is how you kill elk in the backcountry. It's not even a question.
Yeah. So what's your strategy then? You're dogging a herd. You don't kill them. Camping that night. Are you backing off a little bit?
A little bit.
Camping right there?
Not much.
Not much, just to get the wind in my favor. Yeah. Like I'll pull off into like one ridge over to like into the bottom of the canyon and camp that night, just so that, like I've got my wind and any noise that I might make when I'm like setting up my camp and going to bed and stuff. And then before light the next day, maybe an hour before light, I've got everything in my backpack and I'm like going up, keeping in mind where the last point that I saw those elk or heard those elk at night was. There's a lot of times too, like middle of the night, you'll be laying there bedded, sleeping. And Wyoming, we've had elk walk through camp, and they're bugling. It's like 2:33 in the morning and you're kind of waking up and you're gauging like, okay, he's bugling here. Now he's over there. He's headed that direction. I know where I'm going in the morning.
Yep.
You gain so much information that way. I feel like that just like helps put the puzzle, and that's really like elk hunting is. It's like putting a puzzle together. Yep. It's like trying to figure it out day after day after day to eventually put yourself into a spot where it's like, yep.
Yeah, that's it. Me and Omar, when we were back there last year, we got into the canyon that there was multiple bulls. They were bugling at each other. It's like, okay, this is our starting point. We just pulled below them into a creek bottom. Thermals are going to be going down all night long. We're right on a creek, so noise is minimized by the noise of the creek. Went to bed with bugles, woke up with bugles. And the other thing too is like we were talking about the moon phase for our elk hunt, and yeah, it sucks that it's a full moon like on the perfect days of our hunt, but all that does is just change the strategy where we're probably going to wake up 2 hours earlier than we would have, and we'll stalk them in the moonlight. Like the second
get in close.
Yeah, the second the legal shooting light, like like nothing wrong with getting on them at night.
I mean the moon. I feel like that moon comes up. It's going to come up. It's going to hit like full brightness, like midnight, right?
Yeah.
So they'll probably get up. They'll do some rutting. They'll feed from midnight, 1 o'clock till just before light. Kind of once that moon starts to go down, and like they may be a little bit more quiet in the morning, but I feel like they won't stay bedded forever. Like at some point they're going to get up.
Midday hunts and full moons are awesome.
Yeah, midday, kind of that 11 o'clock, noon. I think all animals are that way. Like this last week we're hunting mule deer. Like I told Neville every day, 3 o'clock we need to be on the glass.
Yeah,
because that buck's getting up and he's moving every day at 3. And sure enough, every day we'd see a buck at 3 o'clock.
It's fun to hunt midday.
Yeah, midday.
I like those midday hunts. It makes the day go by fast.
Elk are no different, I don't think.
I want to go back to the strategy of dogging a herd and camping on it. Like Lorenzo mentioned, you can wake up super early, use that moonlight, get closer to an area you hear them bugling in the morning. But like, how long do you think it takes you to break down your camp in the morning to set up? Obviously, you don't want maybe you are close to the elk. Maybe the elk moved in the night and you have them nearby. Are you red lighting it?
You should ask Omar.
Oh yeah,
you should ask Omar this question.
I'm red lighting it.
Red lighting it.
If there's not enough moon to see and hike, I'm red lighting it.
Because you might have those situations too where it rained all night. rain fly's all wet. You're not obviously taking your rain fly, shaking it off, trying to get all that water off. You're going to be packing shit away wet and shoving in your pack. And this is why the importance of having gone backpacking before and testing it out, or scouting, or going in your backyard or your neighborhood if you don't live in the mountains, and learning how to throw the shit in your backpack in a fairly quick manner, but also quiet, not like, you know, wrenching all the zippers, pushing all the things down, shaking your rain fly and getting it in there to like figure out, okay, how long does it take you to break down? Because you don't want to miss the morning.
Yeah. I mean, when we're in the elk woods, we whisper. And like that, my dad taught me that, and it's annoying. I know that we've had people comment on videos before that we've done like originals, and they're like, pretty good film other than the fact that the guy just whispers the whole damn time. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you, because that's just my voice when I hunt elk. Like, I whisper.
It's the hunting voice.
Yeah, it's the hunting voice. Like, I'm whispering in the woods. I'm not ever having like a full-blown conversation. So that's like one thing. Same thing with your equipment. Like, I'm pulling the rain fly off, I'm folding it up real quiet, and I'm throwing it in my backpack. And there's a lot of middays. I'm pulling everything out of my backpack, I'm throwing it over a log, and I'm drying it out during the middle of the day.
That's a good tip.
And that's
pretty common.
Yeah, and that's the bivvy thing too. Is it rained on us every night, literally every night. But the nice thing about a bivvy is just shove the sleeping bag all the way down on the bottom and roll the bivvy over itself. Sleeping bag stays dry the whole time. And then midday, you just take it out and let it dry. We let it dry the second day, third day, we took all our gear out and let it dry.
Yeah.
But you should ask Omar the difference in camp setup and how fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, Omar, how quick?
Lorenzo was quick. I was pretty slow. I'm not gonna lie.
Are we talking 30 minutes slow? Or
No, like I was behind by like a minute or two.
Minute or two doesn't sound slow.
Minute or two?
If he's saying you were slow, it's not a minute or two.
I ate my full breakfast sitting there.
You ate a breakfast that morning?
Yes.
Oh, lucky. I was
Bacon, eggs,
Cooked it up.
hash brown.
No, it's the difference of like, you know, like I said, trail showing me the light is that bivvy style setup.
I'd say the like reality, everything in my backpack, I'm fully dressed like 15 minutes.
That's what I would think. 15, everything in
I
the
would
back.
say I was 15 and Omar was probably like 25, 30.
Yeah. Because what I like to do is when I'm moving, if I know I'm going to move to camp in the morning, get things organized at night before you go to bed.
Yeah.
Because it's always, like, yeah, you're going to be excited to wake up in the morning, but there's always people, whatever. Might be hard to wake up, throw your contacts in, do whatever. So like get things organized and get things ready then in the morning so you can just shove it in there really quickly.
It's a good tip.
And have it sitting next to you like, all right, organize, not just a yard sale in your tent. And then,
that's a very good tip, because Trail also, that 7 years ago on our backcountry hunt, he also showed me the light of being very organized, very unorganizedly organized. Like I've always been like over the top. On the sheep hunts I had been on, like, you know, every part of the day had like a gear bag specific for it. You know what I mean? Like a tool bag and a down bag and a this bag. Like, so I knew everything was super organized. I went back there and Trail at the first couple of days. I'm like, dude, there's just shit laying everywhere. And he's like, yeah, but you know, I know where it all goes and I know where it all is.
Yeah. And it's a good point. Pack everything as if you're going to get everything ready to go super quick in the morning. So it's like loaded and ready to go. So like, if you're going to repack your bag in the morning, lay all your food out, you know, together, have things
and that's
laid
what
out.
You were doing. And I kept telling him, like, dude, it is a fucking yard sale over here.
Kind of
is.
He's
like, well, it's for a reason.
It's it's all going to go in the proper order.
And then I watched it in action and I'm like,
get organized.
That it was incredibly fast. Now to this day, like I have 0 bags other than food bags. And it goes in the same way every time.
Yep.
And it's kind of like a very loose, organized system.
And we touched on red light. You said, yes, you red light in the morning.
I'm a red light. Yeah.
So you think elk hunter
in red light?
Can I add something?
Yeah.
I just went in and I bought a bivvy, by the way.
Good. On the podcast?
On the podcast.
I'm so proud
Look
of
at
him.
you working hard.
Change it up and set up 8 days
what
before you go.
What else did you do on the podcast today?
That's about it.
He's on Tinder, got a couple dates,
couple hit matches.
Lining them out. That's hilarious.
I just bought. I've been meaning to, but this kind of goes back to that one time you guys told me to apply in my home state.
Yeah.
And I listened to you guys, and I think you guys' years of experience.
Yeah.
So I bought a bivvy.
I wanted to wrap out. This is kind of like the last thing that I wanted to touch on in my notes. I have it titled "Don't Get Stuck in a Rut." Play on words, right? Rutting elk, but dad jokes. I think you should have a plan. Like you should go into your hunt with a plan, right? you should have, I'm going to hunt this area. This is my A area. This is my B area. This is where I'm going to park. That's how I'm going to get there. It's all my gear. I'm going to have my gear list. I'm going to have my GOHUNT maps. I'm going to have offline maps downloaded. I'm going to have points saved. I don't get to the point where I'm like laying out camping spots and stuff like that. A lot of people do. Good on you. I think it's great. Point I want to make though is like, I think a lot of people get married to their plan. They're like, this is my plan. I'm going to hunt this canyon. And they get in there and they hunt the canyon and it's like, maybe there's no elk and they just keep trying to grind it out because they're like, man, it looks like there should be elk here. You know, I'm not having the hunt. And like, you only get so many days, right? And like, it's funny because like the first 2 or 3 days might drag on, but like you get to day 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, those click by so fast. Mm-hmm. And pretty soon you're like day 7, you're like, man, I haven't had like a really decent elk encounter. I haven't had an opportunity. I haven't heard a bugle. You know what I mean? Like I'm not having the hunt that I wanted to have, but they're like married to their plan. So like, I guess the point I would make is like, don't get married to your plan. Like have plans A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
And like, if it's not going your way.
I was going to let you finish that statement when you said have a plan.
Mm-hmm.
How much, like if you're talking percentage wise, how much of a plan do you have? Yeah. If you're talking as a percentage of like the hunt, how much is your plan?
Yeah. Dude, my idea of planning is like I put a lot more preparation into like shooting my bow, making sure my bow is dialed, making sure my gear list is dialed, my food's packed.
I'm talking your park, hike in, and hunt logistics and plan. As a percentage, how much is done before you hit the trail?
Like...
Be honest, Trail.
Not much. 10%, 15% maybe. I have an area picked out. I'm like, that looks elky. Yeah. I'm going to park my truck here. That's kind of it. I'll probably have some wallows and some water like figured out because obviously water, you got to have it. But if there's elk in the country, like there's going to be water, you know. But I don't put a lot of effort into like planning camping spots.
And
like
that's exactly to the point of don't get married to your plan.
Yeah, I'm not going to call from here. I don't have it on my phone like, oh, I better hike to this point and call. Like I'm not doing that. Like I'm reading the landscape. I'm using my binos to find elk. I'm using a bugle or a cow call to have a bull bugle. And then like I'm adapting my plan and I'm going to it. But like the thing that had me thinking about this is like I thought of a few years, last year, we went to an area. It was an area we hunted before and we had great luck. Killed elk. A lot of elk, a lot of cows and calves. We went in there maybe a little bit earlier, I think. And there were elk in there. There were 2 bulls for sure, 2 bulls. And we called the 1 bull in. Didn't work out. There was another bull and they were kind of hit or miss. Like they'd bugle a little bit back to you, but they weren't like they weren't call savvy. Like you weren't going to call these bulls in day out. So like, and we invested time, like 2 days, 3 days. We're 7 miles in there. Like we put that effort to get in there. And I think a lot of people would have just been like, okay, there's 2 bulls here. I'm hearing a bugle every now and then. I've hiked 7 miles. I drove all the way up in here. It's going to take me another day or a day and a half to go do something else. So like in reality, and we talked about it, it was like, we could stay here because there's elk here. There's at least 2 bulls that we know of, right? But reality is like we could probably grind out 10 days here and not kill either of those bulls. Like the chances of killing either one of those bulls is pretty slim. So we pulled up stakes, hiked out 7 miles, drove for 3 hours, 4 hours, hiked in the dark to a new area, and we got into a boatload of elk. You know what I mean? So
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. So I think like, especially, and I can see it, like if you're a Midwesterner, you're an Easterner, and you come out west and you've never hunted elk before, it can seem like pretty intimidating to like try to go to a new area that you haven't really spent a lot of like time scouting or looking into. But like, man, I would tell people like, sometimes you just got to like really grow a spine and just.
So the reason why I asked you is
go for it.
I feel like you are the best at that.
Like I don't know if I am. But
no, you genuinely, you're the best at that. I would say a lot of us have plans. Like I would say Porter is the most fully planned out. Like it is glassing knobs and who's, doing what in this day and that time. Brady's giving me, he just hunted with the
It's
last
almost a
But I'm just-
logistical nightmare.
because he is overplanned.
Overplanning.
Yeah, correct. So that's my point with porters. It's so like overplanned, right? And I would say you're the exact opposite. I would say that's why I asked you as a percentage wise of having a plan. I would say I'm less than 50% planned on every hunt I go to. Like it's funny because Porter will ask me about Omar and I's hunt. It's like, well, what are you doing? Hitting this trailhead. I'm hiking into here and we'll see if we hear anything. And then if not, we'll go up to the top and over the backside, see if we hear anything. What are you going to do after that? I don't know. Like that's my answer. I have no idea. I have no clue what I'm going to do. I know that I like this area. I know that there's multiple basins we can hunt. I know that. Like that's my plan. That's my plan. Is I know okay, the best place to get in logistically is this trailhead. Park here, hike to this spot. We can go up and over the backside from this spot. And beyond that, like that's my plan A. Now we do have a plan B, which is all the way south side, and we would have to pull out and do all that. But we have the same plan over there too. Is like we'll hit the backside of this basin. That's the plan. Like see if we like it. I don't know. The plan is literally hit these spots, see if we like it, make a decision from there.
And we're
Plan is to
probably
figure out the plan
Correct.
on the fly.
Yeah.
And
Reporters like this time we wake up. This guy's driving 30 minutes to this. This guy's driving 40 minutes. It's like, what the fuck?
and if we do move, we're gonna do it in the dark
Yeah.
because
you're gonna make the most of your time when you're out there.
And that's
Can't
one
hunt
thing
in the dark. So
I picked
that's
up
when you move.
when I was talking to you about my mule deer hunt. You're like, I was like talking to you about water and everything. It's like, we'll just hike down during the dark, go get the water, and come back up. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, shouldn't I be in bed like resting? He's like, dude, you're not going to kill him during the dark, so that's when you're going to go make a
you
move onto
sleep
the
during
water.
the day if
Walmart,
you don't.
you
Yeah.
can't kill him.
I was trying to do that. But, I think that's one thing that people also like overthink too. Like, I mean, I was doing the same thing. Oh, I'm solo. Like, what if a bobcat comes in? A mountain lion comes and kills me,
He's scared of the bobcat.
A pack of bobcats.
A pack of bobcats.
No, but that's like when because we had 2 different tags last year, and he killed, and it's like, well, we're not driving to my unit right now. Like it's dark.
Yeah.
Like, we should definitely drive 3 hours to my unit to the first camp spot. So that's what we did. We pulled up at like 3 a.m. And we can't hunt them, so fucking cover country.
You can
Like,
sleep
let's
when
get
you
to
get
my unit.
home.
So, yeah, exactly.
And you can sleep during the middle of the day. I mean, move when it makes sense. Because it's like, I just always go back. You only get so many days in the woods. Like you absolutely have to make the most of them.
And then to not get, bringing it back to your point, to not get married to that, like the plan. Like we have a basin we like the best.
Sure.
There's no question about it. Like you look at it, tapers off nicely, faces the right direction.
Looks elky.
It's got a long stem and a big bulb at the top. Like it looks great. It's like the plan is we check that out. From there, who knows?
It's a teaspoon
basin. Yeah, that's the plan. So we're not married to anything past that.
The other thing I'll say in regards to this is I've hunted a lot of areas. I'm thinking specifically of a spot where we went into it and there were a lot of elk in it. And it took me about one morning to realize that there's a lot of elk in there because they are almost impossible to kill. Like it is thick as a carpet. I mean, you would be shooting an elk at less than 5 feet if one did come into you. And it was one of those situations where it was like, we could hang out in here. We could hunt this canyon for the next 10 days. We're going to hear elk bugle. We'll probably get within range. The chances of us actually getting an arrow off are slim to none.
Yeah.
And it was like a hard decision, like to leave elk. But I think sometimes, and they always say that, what's that saying? Don't leave elk to find elk. I don't think it's foolproof.
Yeah.
I would
always
say
exceptions. Always exceptions.
the exception to that, I would say, is be quick to leave elk that are that you're not going to kill to go find elk that you can.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
That's a phenomenal point.
Yeah.
When you're dealing with archery equipment and trying to make an archery shot, if they're living in stuff that you just keep telling yourself, like, yeah, how would I ever get an arrow through there? It's not a great spot to be hunting.
Yeah.
I do have one more thing.
Let's hear it.
I don't want this to be long-winded because it can get crazy.
Good thing I'm not saying it then.
Yeah, because you just picked up some calls in your hand.
Yeah.
How many calls do I need?
My elk call wallet.
Yeah, go on
Call wallet. By the way, it is awesome.
Yeah.
Ran it this whole last weekend.
So speaking of that, like, do I need 10 diaphragm calls? Like, are they going to fail on me in the hunt? I need a bunch of backups. Like, need to have a ton of different styles. And how many total basically calls are you carrying? Diaphragms? Are you carrying external reed, bugle tube? What's your call setup look like? How many of each?
I take 3 of my favorite
diaphragms,
which is the Maverick.
Okay.
The reason I take 3 is that maybe one doesn't sound the way I want it to. Maybe the reed gets a little bit rippled out and it's not producing sound. The other reason is I might set that thing down and walk off without it.
Yeah, so you got to have a backup.
Which I may have done before, allegedly.
No way. Not trail.
Bugles. So I take 3 of those, and then I usually take another 2 that I just like. So I usually have 5 diaphragms. I also take external bite and blow calls. I usually have 1 around my neck, and I usually have 1 in my pack. So 2 of those. So this might be overkill, but I know for a fact, like I leave calls. I get excited, I set calls down, and I walk off without them. Right. And then I take 1 bugle tube.
You may or may not have
and
left
then
bugle
I have left a bugle tube. You can bugle. You can bugle through a smart water bottle if you cut the end of it off, and it will
Produce.
It'll produce. An elk will bugle back to it.
Yeah.
I will say that.
This is the one thing you're more overkill than me, for sure.
Yeah, calls.
Yeah.
And again,
I
know,
like a 2 call guy.
No, I take 3 reeds. I actually take 4, but I take 3 distinctively different ones. I'll bring like a cow calf, a mature cow, and then like a straight bugle reed. And then I'll bring an extra of my favorite cow calf, that ribbon, the orange one. Like the call's phenomenal.
Yeah,
So I'll bring an extra just in case the one gets rippled and whatever. So I'll have like the 3 different sounding calls, and those are the ones that I'll play with and kind of read the response of the room on which ones are responding to, whatever. And then an easy sucker, that Phelps easy sucker, because when you're in tight and dark timber, because we've said this before on the podcast, but because you're sucking in as opposed to blowing out, you can make the softest little cow calls. And it does phenomenal when you're like in tight and you just need something, but you're not trying to tip off the whole herd. Like you're not trying to get them all to lift their head. You know what I mean? So I'd bring that easy sucker and then a bugle tube. The only reason I use the easy sucker is just for those real light little tiny calls.
I would say 99% of the cow calls I do are this easy estrus. It's just because I know I can produce a cow elk sound no matter if I'm like cottonmouth and can't, I'm thirsty or whatever. Omar thought I was stoned. Did you see that? That's where his mind went straight to it when I said cottonmouth. But
he is from Washington and Oregon.
Yeah, that's right. But I would say most of the cow calling I do is with that. So I always have a couple of those. And like I said, I just know that I'm prone to losing them, unfortunately.
Self-aware.
Sunglasses and elk calls.
Yeah. So
Can't keep what.
And the other reason why I don't bring 10 to your point, Brady, like those people, I am self-aware that I'm not bow.
Yeah.
Like I'm
You're
very
probably not
self-aware.
using it all the time.
I wouldn't even be able to use these other calls for what they're used for.
Exactly.
I can make a cow calf, I can make a mature cow, and I can bugle, and that's it. I don't need all the other little things. A guy like him could actually use them. I can't.
Yep.
So that's why I just bring the 3.
Yep.
One more thing.
Yep.
Did you see that bugle tube that we had at the gear shop a while ago? That's like, was it $300?
Oh,
The
the
ribbon
ribbon
tube.
Yeah, the ribbon.
I have it.
What makes that so special?
Wood, man.
That's what
Dude,
it
it
is.
sounds amazing.
I saw it the other day. And I don't know. I didn't click on it and look at it.
Different bugle tubes sound
The
different
Rivian.
based on what they're made out of, right?
Yeah.
So this one, I like this one. This is the Phelps metal bugle tube. So this one like definitely hits a higher, more shrill note, and it tends to carry. I like the sound of this. That Riven bugle tube, the wood one, it's got like this, I don't know, it's like this pure, it's a really nice sound.
Going back to waterfowl hunting, people keep getting mad at me for that, but a wooden duck call, like a Cocobolo call or something like it, they just have a more, like such a more natural sound because the material's porous and actually will deafen it, but at the same time as make noise out of it. You know what I mean? 'Cause like,
what you just said to make total sense because basically elk call makers took influence from duck hunters. It directly correlates that in my head right now.
Yeah.
Like
And
you've had.
and I bought one.
If you're ever around Bo, go listen to him blow on the thing.
It's incredible. Wood because it's porous, it just helps take in some of the vibration while also making sound at the same time.
So
It's hard to explain, but like duck hunters definitely know what we mean by that. But
Maybe if I bought one of those, I wouldn't lose it.
I bought
Yeah,
one.
you probably take her.
And they're incredibly expensive, and a lot of people will laugh at me buying one.
But
But
if
like,
it could tip the edge,
I think
you know?
I don't even look at it as like a tip the edge thing. I literally look at it as an art piece. It is a badass thing. Like, this is something I plan on having forever. Like, give it to my son, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
know
and
what I
like if
mean?
you like the way it's like this one, the metal bugle tube is heavier, but I like the way it sounds. I'm more confident in this than I am another bugle tube, so I use it.
Yeah.
I'll pack it around.
I think it's cool. I think it's awesome that he made a wooden bugle.
Yeah.
What if
think
I was
it's
hunting
cool.
in a swamp area and there's a beaver lodge and I left my call out? Am I going to have to worry and put my call in at night because I don't want the beaver to be chewing on that
Probably.
wood bugle tube?
You are.
That's just, I just wanted to know.
You
that.
also have to
Watch
worry
out for those angry
a lot.
beavers.
You have to worry a lot with wooden duck calls and this bugle tube of warping and swelling and moisture and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Interesting.
those are cool though.
Do you have it here? The
No,
wood
it's
one?
at my house. I'll bring it though.
I kind of want to see it in person.
Yeah,
Like, here.
I'll bring it tomorrow. It's
Kind
awesome.
of cool.
Well, good
intrigued.
luck.
Let's go elk hunting.
Are you guys jacked to go elk hunting?
I can't wait.
I can't believe it's here.
At some point in this podcast, you guys got jacked to elk hunt. I
Oh
was.
yeah.
Well,
I just kept thinking about it. I'm like, oh man, I'm stoked.
I got extremely jacked this last weekend because, spike hunts are fun with the family,
Sure.
and we've been doing them for a while. But like, it's just an odd. I don't know. You got herd bulls passing you, and you're like, this is weird.
Yeah.
Like, I want to go after that guy.
What do they say, Trail? You only get so many Septembers.
Yes. And it's National Elk Month, so good luck, everybody. Go hunt elk, kill a big bull. Good luck. Stay safe.